4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. Of course, you can always hit us up, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227 is how you talk to me, and you could always interact with me as well on the good old cesspool of Twitter X or on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing on both accounts at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I got Moist Mike. I got Nico rocking and rolling with me, jamming out all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. We got not one, not two, but three awesome guests for you today. We will preview, as we continue our NFL preview of all 32 teams, the Carolina Panthers today with former Panther signal caller Jake Delhomme 20 minutes from now. Then coming up in an hour 20 from now, we will preview, I guess we could say Samter's Jets, Jets, even though he's claiming to be a Chiefs fan. Willie Colon, as he'll stop by an hour 20 from now. And then at the top of the final hour of the show today at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time, former Longhorn player, now does a great job with Sirius XM. And that, of course, is Fozzie Whitaker, who's going to be live at SEC Media Days. I got to start the show with, I guess, it is news, but I do think it's misleading news, and I do think that it falls in line with my theory that Brandon Aiyuk will still be on the San Francisco 49ers come week one, and I'm still leaning towards the side of they'll get a deal done this offseason or next offseason with Brandon Aiyuk, who's on the fifth year of his rookie contract, and that fifth-year option year, being a former first-round pick, and then a year from now, I do believe that the 49ers will have to depart with someone, and I do think that person will be Deebo Samuel. Because I've said this from the start. I do believe the 49ers' intention is to run it back this season, and they're in a true championship or bust mode now, getting to the Super Bowl twice and losing both times, blowing 10-point leads to the Kansas City Chiefs and the great Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think it would be smart, or I don't think it would be good business to get rid of Brandon Aiyuk, even if you have to franchise tag him a year from now and then trade him while he's clearly disgruntled. Now, he's disgruntled now, but as we've seen before with the 49ers, just because a player is disgruntled doesn't mean you have to trade him. Like, you go back to Deebo Samuel when he last got his contract extension, he also requested a trade. And we all know that Deebo eventually got paid. But I really do believe that the 49ers look at Brandon Aiyuk as a better pure wide receiver than Deebo Samuel. And Deebo Samuel is a better all-around football player, but there is more wear and tear on the body of Deebo Samuel, who suffered quite a few injuries, where the preference is probably you run it back this year, you try to put the Aiyuk conversation on the back burner, maybe get a contract done. If you can't get a contract done, then you take on the drama, you take on the mess, but you're willing to go through the drama, you're willing to go through the mess, because you ultimately do believe you'll get a long-term deal done, or there is a chance you depart with him after this season, but at least you have all hands on deck and all your troops in line to go make that one final push or another push to go secure a Lombardi trophy, which you've been oh so close, but yet so far. So the big news today, when Mike Garafolo tweets out, sources, 49ers All-Pro wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade after an offseason of unsuccessful attempts to reach an extension. That's news. That feels like it's ominous news. And also, if Garofalo reports, despite a recent meeting, the Niners haven't been willing to engage in negotiations since May, so Aiyuk has respectfully asked out. So when I first saw that today, I'm like, oh, wow. He's reached his burning point with the San Francisco 49ers. He reached his boiling point, and now he wants out. And now it's official. Like, he's done some, I guess you could say, dramatic, messy things this offseason, like showing up with Jaden Daniels for a pivot pivot interview. That was intentional. Talking to Jaden Daniels and making it clear, I guess the 49ers doesn't want me. Like, those have all been things that have been well documented this offseason. But I thought the big nugget there, because it seems like they were in talks, was that they haven't been willing, the 49ers, to engage in negotiations since May. Now, I don't get why they haven't been willing to engage in negotiations since May, so it's not impossible to then say, doesn't seem like the 49ers want to keep him. But I just think that's part of the business side of this. And I don't know how realistic the demands are of Brandon Aiyuk right now. But in the next breath, Adam Schefter tweeted out something that I was talking about a few moments ago. In the past, the 49ers have had players such as Deebo Samuel and Robbie Gould also request trades before reaching deals with both players. The 49ers intend to keep Brandon Aiyuk, not trade him. So even though there was probably like 10 minutes of, oh my goodness gracious, this is the start of the end to Brandon Aiyuk in a 49ers uniform, then when Schefter chimes in off the Garofolo report, hey, even though Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to get traded. But I will say, if the 49ers do intend to keep him, which I do believe they do, then why haven't they at least engaged in contract negotiations since May? So this could go either way, but I would still be on the side, and I would still be somewhat surprised if by week 1, Brandon Aiyuk is not on the 49ers. And I still think Brandon Aiyuk is going to be with the 49ers long term. Now, he could talk himself out of doing this, and we thought Deebo was going down that road where he was talking himself off the 49ers. Now, they ended up getting a deal done, but there's a personal side of this that sometimes get lost when it gets messy and when it gets contentious. Sure, if a team gives you the deal that you want, that could smooth everything over, and right when you sign the contract, you go, okay, we're moving on, we're done. All that stuff that happened in the past is just part of it. But maybe there is a light bulb that goes off in Brandon Aiyuk's head where he said, okay, I've officially requested the trade, so even if you make me stay here through this year and play on this deal, I'm not intending to re-sign with you. And if you franchise tag me, I'm going to make it clear I want out. So he could go down this road if he wants, and he could go down a road where there's no return for Brandon Aiyuk to the 49ers. But ultimately, I do think money will solve all these problems. And I think it's fair to say, well, if Schefter is right, which I think he is, that the 49ers intend to keep Brandon Aiyuk, then why haven't they had discussions since May? And why haven't they felt an urgency to get the deal done now? That's the only resistance that I have, and any skepticism I have of my ultimate idea that, yes, I do believe Aiyuk will be there, the younger player long term. I do think they will get a long-term deal done eventually through time with Brandon Aiyuk. And then a year from now, they'll trade Deebo Samuel because you could only keep so many players with the salary cap. But let's just say that teams come calling, and teams have already come calling. You know, this goes back to the draft, this story, where a lot of people thought Aiyuk was going to get moved at the draft, and he wasn't. And I think sometimes people forget now, because we're really in a player empowerment era, and that's the era that we're in, where just because a player asks out, just because a player requests a trade, it doesn't mean you have to trade said player. Now, if a team is willing to inherit the mess and get their hands dirty, get their hands muddy to ultimately find a resolution, that's their right. And I don't think John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan are going to be apprehensive of the drama and the ugliness that can come with this. Because ultimately, it is not in the favor of Brandon Aiyuk to skip more events. Like, he already skipped the mandatory minicamp because you get fined. And with the new CBA, it's very tough to hold out. Now you almost have to hold in, from my understanding of it. So this could get to a staring contest where it could get uncomfortable and it could get icy. And it could get, even very ugly. But I think the 49ers are fine with that. And you do take a risk because Aiyuk could show up and be like, oh, my back hurts. Or, oh, my leg hurts. And that could be a problem if you're contending, and the Niners are, for a Super Bowl if you can't count on him. But I don't think it benefits him, and he'll eventually get paid, but I don't think it benefits him to miss much time. But let's say teams come calling, and it's a robust return, and the Niners are like, hey, we preferred to keep him, but there's an offer that we just can't say no to. Or maybe they say and they switch pass and go, okay, we're willing to listen and we could get a deal done. Which right now I do believe that they intend to keep him. I've come up with 5 teams that I think should pursue the services of Brandon Aiyuk right now. Now, the Arizona Cardinals are one of those teams. Now, they're in the same division, so that could complicate it. But it's not crazy to make a trade in division. But we've seen a formula now of a lot of teams with the quarterback, and I think Kyler Murray can be a very good quarterback in this league, with not only having one number 1 wide receiver, but 2 number 1 wide receivers. You've seen it with the Eagles, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You've seen it with the Dolphins, probably the best example, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And, the Texans got Nico Collins. He turned into a number 1 wide receiver. And then ultimately they got Stephon Diggs. So it's not a crazy formula out there. And you've seen teams with young quarterbacks try to not only give them 1 wide receiver, but 2 wide receivers. We know they just drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think the Cardinals depart with the number 1 pick for Brandon Aiyuk, but if they could give up a second-round pick and then some and be willing to give Aiyuk the deal that he wants, the Cardinals should go try to copy the Dolphins formula or the Eagles formula and try to go get Brandon Aiyuk. Now, the next team, this team has wide receivers. I just don't know if any of them are number 1 wide receivers. Like Christian Watson with the Packers should be a number 1 wide receiver, but he's got to stay healthy. Like I like Wicks and I like Romeo Doubs as well, but I don't have a sure number 1 wide receiver. And Aiyuk is not a top 8 wide receiver, top 10 wide receiver, but he's still a number 1 wide receiver in this league. This guy just had 1,400 yards this past year. And I know that offense is loaded, but you look at the Packers, they got a good offense with Jordan Love. You got Josh Jacobs now, and you got other very productive or people that think you can rely on them to be productive wide receivers. I don't think it would be a bad move by Green Bay to be willing to depart with picks to go get Brandon Aiyuk. Now, here are the 3 teams that I think are the juiciest. The Patriots. The Patriots don't have a number 1 wide receiver. The Patriots have a young quarterback in Drake May. The Patriots with the old regime just ruined another young quarterback in Mac Jones because they didn't surround him with the proper coaching and they never got him a number 1 wide receiver. I know the staff is different. Bill's no longer there, but Gerard Mayo was on that staff, and I know he's on the defensive side of the ball, but he saw what happened to Mac Jones. Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf they can't depart with the 1, obviously, because the Patriots are going to stink. But I'd be more than happy to depart with the 2 and pay Brandon Aiyuk. And you can't tell me the Patriots don't want to spend the money because they offered a big deal to Calvin Ridley this offseason. And Calvin Ridley's girlfriend, fiance, whatever the title is right now with the love life of Calvin Ridley, was not interested in going to one Patriot place in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And the next 2 teams, if it's up to Brandon Aiyuk would love to go reconnect with his college quarterback in Jaden Daniels and team up and bring the Arizona State days to the Washington Commanders. Daniels is already there, and they also have another damn good wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, who may be one of the more underrated players in the NFL. And he's sensational, and he's succeeded very well in this league with really never having a quarterback. And that would also be emulating the Dolphins and the Eagles formula, where you have who you think is your franchise QB, and then you get him 2 number 1 wide receivers to really make that offense hum. But I think the number 1 destination for Brandon Aiyuk, and I think the preeminent destination for Brandon Aiyuk, if in fact the 49ers trade him, and I'm leaning on the side that they don't, they eventually get a deal done and then trade Deebo Samuel a year from now, are the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a phenomenal defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers have an improved offensive line. We know their quarterback room is better, as both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are better than Kenny Pickett. You have 2 solid running backs in Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. You just got rid of Deontay Johnson, and you have a very good wide receiver in George Pickens. The Pittsburgh Steelers should absolutely give up a first-round pick and then pay Brandon Aiyuk and get this deal done right now. They should be on the phone every day trying to lure Brandon Aiyuk to the Steel City. Because the Steelers have always been good as of late, but they haven't had a Super Bowl vibe in a long time. This is an organization that has not won a playoff game since the 2016 season. And if you go get Brandon Aiyuk with the coaching of Mike Tomlin, an excellent defense, the offensive pieces that we mentioned, it makes you take the Pittsburgh Steelers serious. You take them more seriously to a level where we haven't taken them in quite some time, because whenever the offense was good, the defense wasn't on par with the offense. Whenever the defense has been great in Pittsburgh as of late, the offense hasn't been up to par. You go get Brandon Aiyuk, you have two excellent wide receivers, a solid run game, an improved offensive line, better quarterback play, and then obviously a defense, as long as it can stay healthy, that is a superb defense. So absolutely 100%, I would give up the money and a first-round pick to try to bring back a championship window for the Steelers that has been shut for quite some time now. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So those are my 5 destinations that I thought of for Brandon Aiyuk if he does in fact get traded. Cardinals in at 5, Packers 4, Patriots 3, Commanders 2, and the Pittsburgh Steelers in at number 1. We'll take a timeout. Could Brandon Aiyuk potentially be going to the Carolina Panthers? I know they just got Deontay Johnson. I know they got Xavier Legette. They drafted him. And they still have Adam Thielen. We'll also see what year number 2 has in store for Bryce Young and what the Panthers defense will look like now without Brian Burns. Former Panthers quarterback Jake Delhomme will preview the Carolina Panthers with us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the Hayes the Barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes. He runs and he throws, caught, touchdown! It's caught! Hardman caught the ball! The Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone! Their third Super Bowl in 5 years!
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The Carolina Panthers.
All righty, let's preview the Carolina Panthers, and we'll do so with the former Panthers quarterback, and that is Jake Delhomme. Always kind enough to join us right here on the Infinity Sports Network on the Zach Gelb Show. Jake, appreciate you doing this. How you been, my man?
Probably like you. I'm looking forward to football season. Can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start you off with the new leadership in Carolina. A former teammate of yours, Dan Morgan, is now the GM, and Dave Canales is the head coach. I thought finding the right guys was going to be a little bit tricky. You may have not been able to get the most attractive names, but considering what I thought were some parameters on the Panthers' job, I actually liked the hire of both gentlemen. Just what did you make of the Morgan hire and the Canales hire, and what do you think the Panthers have with their new GM and head coach?
Well, listen, I was a teammate of Dan's and, certainly respected him as a player and just how intense he was and just the way he carried himself on and off the field. Football was the most important thing. And I just think his rise, starting as a scouting intern. I mean, Dan would pick up people at the airport in Seattle and young guys who didn't know who he was. And so he started at the bottom and really worked his way up with a great organization in Seattle. And then in Buffalo with what Brandon Beane and that crew has done in Buffalo. So he's it wasn't a fast track, to say the least. And then, hiring Coach Canales, knew nothing about him until last year, to be very honest. He's the OC at Tampa, and certainly we're in that division. But just watching the way Baker played last year and watching him, listening to his press conferences, because leading up to games, I love doing that. The teams that we're playing, listening to their press conferences and what they might want to attack. And he just seemed very meticulous, very even keel in his philosophy. And just doing some background work on him after he got the job in Carolina from people that have been around him. They say he's the same guy every day. Very smart, very calculated, never gets too high, never gets too low. I believe Baker Mayfield basically came out and said the same thing yesterday. I read somewhere Baker talked about how at first you thought this was an act, how this guy was putting on. Everything was so positive, but that's just him every day. So he's going to come in and let's be honest, I believe, and I think we all know, he's here to help Bryce Young become a very good quarterback in the NFL. That's very simple. Number 1 overall pick, gave up many assets to get him, and then a 2-win season last year, which we struggled. And when I say we, it wasn't just him. We struggled as a team. We had, I think, 15 different starting guard combinations along the offensive line. Really didn't have that true playmaker on the outside. Adam Thielen was, Mr. Reliable. He was kind of pretty much our only Mr. Reliable. Chuba Hubbard, I thought, ran the ball well, but we added a lot of pieces, and we're going to protect the quarterback, and it looks like we're going to try to run the football, and we've added some weapons receiver-wise to give us a chance.
The biggest question I have, and I think that Bryce Young could be a good quarterback in this league, but with how dreadful year one was, and it wasn't all on him like you were saying, I wonder where he is at mentally, because now all eyes are on him after being, right, coined the guy and, right, had so much success at Alabama, was the number one overall pick. How do you think he's going to respond mentally to such a challenging year from a season ago?
I feel extremely confident in saying he's going to take last year and use it as a learning lesson. One thing about Bryce, and if you've been around him at all, this was the number one quarterback coming out of high school. This was the Heisman Trophy winner, Alabama quarterback, number one pick. He's seen a lot of things. He's had the spotlight on him since he was very young. He doesn't get fazed too much. That's one thing about Bryce. Do I worry about the 62 sacks that he took last year? Yeah, somewhat. But watching him play in the latter part of the season, he would still stand in there and he would take hits. And he's very tough. I understand he's slight and he's not as big as everybody would like, but to take 62 sacks in the NFL, and I can't count how many times he got out of sacks. He should have had so many more. I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. I really and truly don't. And one thing Dave Canales has basically come out and he's talked about and he's preached, 2.7 seconds. Get the ball out in 2.7 seconds or less. Well, you do that in a multitude of ways. You have to get receivers that can get open quick. You have to call the right plays. You got to have a run game that helps you too. And that's something that I'm not so sure last year. Bryce had 3 different play callers if you look at it, from Frank Reich to Thomas Brown, then back to Frank, and then back to Thomas. So it was a mixed bag last year. And so I truly believe you're going to see what you saw with Geno Smith 2 years ago in Seattle when he had that kind of resurgence of his career under Canales. I think Baker last year. Baker did a great job. Some of my notes as I look back last year when we played Tampa is that Baker's getting the ball out quick. He's very decisive. He's getting it out quick. He's taking shots when he has to, but he was moving. He was getting rid of the football, and that's something that Dave incorporates. And I believe you're going to see that in this offense. Deontay Johnson was a huge get for us. I think Adam Thielen, you can go to bed every single night on Saturday night knowing he's going to show up and be the same guy every Sunday. But getting someone as quick as Deontay Johnson, who's going into a contract year, and we all know how those things can play out, we're going to have some more weapons for Bryce. I truly believe that. I think we're going to run the ball effectively, but I just think we're going to have more weapons. And a first-round pick, a big, large, fast man, Xavier Leggett. I mean, he can really run, and he's really big and loves football. And that's one thing that Dan Morgan's going to put his thumbprint on this team will be guys that don't like football, that love football. There's a big difference. I played with many players that were good at football, and they liked it. And I play with the ones that are really good, the ones that love it. And Dan has done that. And even some of the guys he signed free agent-wise, he wants guys that truly just love football. I just think that goes a long way. I played with a locker room full of guys that way. And the success we had in Carolina, it was because of the defense, the offense, the special teams, and those core meat and potatoes players that they get overlooked by these big signings and whatnot. But those are those people that you need on your football team, the special teams and things like that, that they help you get through a season because there's going to be some injuries along the way.
Jake Delhomme here with us. I saw Brandon Aiyuk requested a trade today, even though they drafted Leggett and they also signed or traded for Deontay Johnson. I know you're not going to give up a first-round pick for him, but they did get a second-round pick in the draft from the Rams for 2025. Would that be something, if the 49ers are interested, Panthers trade a second-round pick, you give Brandon Aiyuk a big contract?
Well, that's the thing. It's not only giving up a pick. You're giving up a pick with a large contract. I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen. And, I don't know where we'll play at and all that. Certainly I'm not in that front office. That's going to be Dan's decision to make if that's even a play. The 49ers have kind of shut down those talks already that he is not available. So we'll see how that all plays out. But I'm excited about some of the pieces that we added. Listen, we were a 2-win team last year. We were not a good football team. There were a lot of games we were in. We just couldn't get over the hump. I see a much bigger jump this year. We listen to everyone. I say we, and because I love football, so I'm constantly always listening to football talk shows and things like that. And the Panthers are up there. Oh, they're going to have the first pick of the draft in 2025. I don't see that. I truly don't. I think this team is going to be a team. Now, will we be a playoff team? I'm not so sure we're there yet. But I think we're going to be a team that's going to be a battle. We're going to make teams struggle with us, especially if we can run the football. Defensively, keeping Evero, I think, was huge. And keeping some of the guys we kept on defense, getting Derek Brown signed. I like some of the signings that we did on defense.
Yeah, Jake, what do you expect out of the defense? Because that, to me, is the intriguing part, because they got rid of Brian Burns, and we know how productive he was.
Yeah, listen, got rid of Brian. We signed Jadeveon Clowney, who wanted to come back home. And I thought it was pretty telling on his part. One of the interviews that he said, he goes, I always had family wanted me to come back home. He said, I wasn't ready to come back home. He said, and he basically said, hey, I was probably a little too young. I was probably maybe too many other things. He goes, now I'm ready to come back home. He said, I'm ready to put on a show week in and week out for my family, for my kids to see. I thought that was very telling. Getting Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, I thought was a huge signing. Another big body in the middle. DJ Wanham coming off of an injury, but a productive player in Minnesota. Caleb on Jason taking a flyer on him. He's got some ability. See if he can do something. Getting Shaq Thompson back. I've been saying it. We lost Shaq in week 2 last year to a broken ankle. Shaq that's something that nobody talks about, him coming back. He's only in year 8 or 9. I'm drawing a blank there. Josie Jewell we signed, but we got to get J.C. Horn. If J.C. Horn can stay healthy, he's a guy, he's a difference maker, a big, large guy. Signed Jordan Fuller, have Xavier Woods back. We've signed Nick Scott, who those guys have experience in EJ's system. So I'll go back to the offense. I think if we can run the ball and run it effectively, that's going to make our defense better. You ask any defensive coordinator when a team doesn't have that many opportunities with the ball, and if we can just kind of lean on it and use Bryce's precision passing, because that's one thing that Bryce possesses. It is a precision passing. He is very, very accurate. If we can get the ball out quick like Dave wants to do, run the ball, I think we'll give our defense some chance. And we're still a team that's going to need pieces. I'm not saying we're a team that's ready-made by any stretch of the imagination. But I think this is a team that can bother many football teams this year.
The Panthers the last 3 years have been a mess. I know you do their games now on the radio, and you're part of the radio broadcast, Jake Delhomme. David Tepper, the last 3 years, it's been ugly. What do you think he's learned the last 3 years, and do you think he'll adjust and change as an owner as he better understands the league for maybe some of the mistakes he made in years past?
Listen, let's throw this disclaimer out. I do the radio for the Panthers. I get it. Somebody listening on the other end is going to be like, well, yeah, he's a company guy. I'm going to call it like I see it. Yes, I want the Panthers to win. I bleed Carolina blue. I promise you, and being around David and listening to the other people in the higher ups in the organization, the coaches, and David Tepper will provide any and everything to help this football team win. I can guarantee you that. That is a fact. That is proven. He wants a winner. And I think this year, in my opinion, watching the draft, when we draft Jonathan Brooks in the second round with the 52nd pick overall, a guy coming off of an ACL, right then and there I said to myself, okay, Dan Morgan is not worried about 2024. He is building this team for the future. And I think that's how you have to build. And that, to me, I truly believe he had the blessing of David Tepper in that regard. And so that's where we're at. Matt Rule came in, had a ton of success at Temple, ton of success at Baylor, and was given that opportunity. And listen, just things didn't work out. And then Steve Wilkes had the interim job, and we kind of changed what we did, became a physical football team, and made a run the back half of that division in 2022 because the division was down. Make no bones about it. It wasn't like it was a great division. Let's make no bones about it. And then last year, bringing in Frank, there was a big staff, and it just seemed like with a rookie quarterback, and it just kind of seemed there were many pieces that maybe weren't in place, so to speak. It just felt uneasy all season long, and calling the plays, not calling the plays, calling them again, getting fired. So it was this is a reset. This is a rookie year for Bryce Young, and we've added some pieces around him to protect the asset, in my opinion.
He is Jake Delhomme, former Panthers quarterback, does a great job now calling the games on their radio network. Kind enough to join us to preview the Panthers for a few minutes. Jake, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Zach. Have a great day. Happy football, man.
You got it. Right back at you. There he is, Jake Delhomme, kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Always enjoy when we get to catch up with him for a few minutes. We'll take a break. When we come on back, One big college football pundit says Colorado is irrelevant. Is he right? And also, there's a trend with Brian Kelly that you need to just keep an eye on heading into this season for the LSU Tigers and what Brian Kelly usually does in year 3. We'll get to all that on the other side. But first, with the latest Infinity Sports Network update, here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance. Brandon Aiyuk made his desire to get paid no secret, even hinting at places he'd like to go if he couldn't secure his money in San Francisco. Well, apparently those talks with the 49ers have stalled. Aiyuk reportedly asking for a trade. Now we'll see if the 49ers are willing to part with the 26-year-old wideout that had over 1,300 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns last season. Elsewhere, Rome Odunze agreed to his rookie deal with the Bears, 4 years, $22.7 million with a 5th-year option. So one down as Chicago still hasn't signed top overall pick in Caleb Williams. Paul Skeens has taken baseball by storm. Now the Pirates rookie gets a chance to start the All-Star game tonight in Texas. Skeens quick to say he was just trying to make sure that he was impactful starter this year, not necessarily trying to make an All-Star team as a rookie.
That was a big focus of the offseason, and obviously being here now, I think that's just a product of doing it one day at a time and having good coaches and good people around me. But yeah, I didn't necessarily think I would be here.
Well, the American League counters with the Orioles' Corbin Burns. His first pitch is set for 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm Marco Belletti.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by the Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. We do have some breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
We have breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
So Brandon Aiyuk has not been traded. Rome Odunze, we found out 2 hours ago from Ian Rappaport, has agreed to terms with one of their first-round picks, locking in wide receiver Rome Odunze on his 4-year contract, $22.7 million fully guaranteed. With a fifth-year option, he gets a $13.3 million signing bonus. Now, the Chicago rookies did report today, and this is the breaking news per rap sheet. The Bears, a number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, have agreed to terms on his new contract. Sources say he gets a slotted 4-year, $39.49 million fully guaranteed with the Bears, and it's a $25.5 million signing bonus. The top pick, according to Rap Sheet, is now secured with the contract. So we could fade out the music. And the other thing I will say is this. I did not know that J.J. McCarthy has not signed his rookie deal yet. So it was a little... I remember we had Michael Penix Jr. on, where Michael Penix Jr. didn't sign his rookie deal yet. And he was like, oh, hey, you'll wait and see. He's promoting Sharpie. So he's like, when I do sign, I'll sign it with my Sharpie marker. So they eventually got their deal done. But Samter, I'm fascinated by the J.J. McCarthy contract. Not that I think it won't get done, but I do wonder if it does take a little bit more time than what we expected to. And there's this idea that Sam Darnold's going to start week 1, which I just think is going to be absolutely ridiculous, and it should not happen. And I do believe that J.J. McCarthy should start week 1. I just wonder the longer this goes, if this just means the more and more likely it's going to be that Sam Darnold is starting week 1 for the Minnesota Vikings.
And in today's world where NFL rookie contracts are basically slotted in, What are you holding out for?
It's all about the guarantees. That's what it is.
I get it, but I mean, you're a quarterback. You need to be there. You need to be with your team. You need to be practicing. You not having a contract is only going to hurt you. Now, hopefully listen, I'm sure he was at rookie minicamp because contracts aren't done by then.
Yeah, he hasn't been holding out, to be clear.
Right.
He just doesn't have a deal done.
But if he gets to a point where the deal's not done and camp is starting or they're doing workouts or all these different kinds of things, at a certain point, you're hindering yourself. And once you fall behind as a rookie quarterback with all the information that you need and all the time you need to work out, you put yourself in a really unenviable position, and it makes it harder for him to surpass Sam Darnold if he is going to surpass Sam Darnold. So, I get the guarantees. Just get in the damn building, get behind center, and start working.
Yeah, I was also reading an article on NFL.com earlier this morning that maybe McCarthy was waiting for Caleb Williams to get his deal done, and then when that happens and he'll get his deal done. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal because I ultimately do think, like you said, there's not a lot of negotiations and leverage that you have here. I do think a deal gets done, but it is weird how long this one has been taking. But I'll stand by it. I think it's an enormous mistake by Minnesota to start Sam Darnold early in the season. I don't need to see Sam Darnold go up against the Giants. I know they play the Niners, the Texans, and the Packers and the Jets. They have a bye week, the Lions, the Rams. Don't get me wrong. Outside of the Giants, that's a tough schedule to open up the season. But J.J. McCarthy, what's your plan with him? Are you really going to make him wait? I don't see why. You have the weapons there. You have the offensive coach. I know Jordan Addison is in hot water with the DUI. But you got Justin Jefferson, Hawkinson whenever he comes back from the injury. You brought in Aaron Jones. To me, just to throw Sam Darnold out there, it seems pointless, and it almost sends the message that the Vikings kind of, for this season, they don't really think they got a shot to make the playoffs. But if McCarthy goes in and succeeds right away, we're talking about the NFC, 9-8 could be that final wild card spot. That's not crazy to say that the Vikings are 9-8 and make the playoffs.
Now, are you saying they should start J.J. McCarthy no matter what? Or is this a situation where, let's say they're going through camp and listen, we see the potential in this kid. He's just not ready. We're going to destroy him physically and emotionally and mentally like the Texans did with David Carr years ago. Maybe not, with the sacks and the offensive line, but putting J.J. McCarthy out there is going to do more harm than good. Do you trust Kevin O'Connell and that coaching staff to make that decision? Or are you saying, under no circumstance should Sam Darnold be starting over J.J. McCarthy?
Then the second part. I think there should be no... For me, it was all about what environment McCarthy was going. If J.J. McCarthy got drafted by the Patriots, I would not be sitting here advocating for J.J. McCarthy to get on the field by week 1. If J.J. McCarthy got drafted by the Giants, remember, that means they would not have Malik Neighbors. There's no way I'm advocating for J.J. McCarthy to start week 1. He goes to a place with an offensive-minded coach, with a running back who is good, and you have 2 wide receivers, and whenever your tight end is back from injury, a very good tight end. That's more than enough where you could throw him in the pool, and I don't think he's sinking. This isn't the Panthers last year. With no disrespect to Adam Thielen, he had a good season, but Adam Thielen in the year of 2023 shouldn't be a number 1 wide receiver. And Thielen had a good year last year, but he's more of a 2 or a 3. So it's about the surrounding environment. And I do believe going to Sam Darnold to start is a paranoid organization. It's an organization that's like, oh, we're kind of punting on this year and we'll kind of go and I know that Kurt Warner, when he got benched by the Giants actually had a decent record and they went to Eli Manning. We're going to kind of follow that formula. If they didn't have Justin Jefferson, if they didn't have Hawkinson, if they didn't have Aaron Jones, they had none of that. And he was just throwing to, whoever their number 3 wide receiver is. Okay, I get it. But what are you expecting out of Sam Darnold? This idea that people, and it happened in San Francisco. Remember a year ago? Oh, watch out for Sam Darnold. If he gets an opportunity to see the field, watch out. And now it's like some people are doing the same damn thing again. I've said this numerous times in the show. I'll say it again. Sam Darnold's known for 2 things. Seeing ghosts and getting mono in the NFL. Those are the 2 things he knows. And I know you could say, oh, well, the Jets screwed him. The Jets put him in a better situation. Even when you are screwed by your organization, you could still give a few tangible moments. And I can't think of a handful of tangible moments of success or individual success that Sam Darnold has had in the NFL. So I just think it's pointless to go to Sam Darnold. It'd be one thing if they didn't have the right environment for McCarthy, but they do have the right environment for J.J. McCarthy. All righty, let's hear from Paul Feinbaum. You know, I always joke and call him Paul Feinbaum because there are sometimes things that are said where he sounds like a bum. But I don't think this one necessarily makes me want to call him Paul Feinbaum. Like, I don't think he's totally right in this case, but I'm not going to sit there and say he's definitely wrong. I think there's just some things in this where he could have just worded it better. So this was Paul Feinbaum, I'll call him by his proper name today, on First Take on the ESPN. And he threw some shade at Coach Prime and Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes.
Anyone asking whether Deion Sanders and Colorado are close to the playoffs simply doesn't understand the reality of the road. The program looking out has a ridiculously inflated view of itself. I heard Shedeur Sanders, who's a fabulous quarterback, say last week, "We are everyone's Super Bowl." Shedeur, you are not. You are an easy win nowadays. You got off to a phenomenal start last year, and quite frankly, you haven't done anything since other than crash and burn. I know that the media loves this story. We fall all over ourselves, but Colorado isn't important in college football. Colorado is nothing. They don't matter. They're irrelevant in the big picture of college football.
So he's not wrong in terms of saying people don't view Colorado as the Super Bowl. Now, there's a lot of hype and attention going into those games, but where he lost me is trying to drum up the conversation that people are like, oh, how close are they to being a playoff team? I don't think anyone with a brain right now is saying Colorado is going to be a playoff team, even with the 12-team format. You know, Colorado is going to be lucky to be bowl eligible. Like, a good season for them. They get 6-7 wins. They should be doing cartwheels in the streets. They're not going to win the Big 12. They're not going to be a 9-10 win team this year. They're just not. But him saying they're irrelevant, they're not irrelevant. Because last year they started the year 3-0, and Colorado was the epicenter of the college football world. And they only won one game after that, and people still cared, and people still talked about Colorado. So I can't say they're irrelevant, but I don't think anyone is seriously talking about them being a college football playoff team. That's where Paul loses me. It's like you're doing a rant just to do a rant. Actually do a rant that has some merit to it and has something behind it instead of just like drumming up this false narrative just to fill a TV segment in the summer. All righty, we'll take a break. So Brian Kelly, by the way, this could be a big year 3 for him at LSU. I'll get into that trend of the year 3 trend for Brian Kelly when we come on back. Also, ESPN, I guess through coaches and executives and personnel around the league, have compiled through votes a top 10 quarterback list. We will reveal that on the other side. Willie Colon's going to stop by 25 minutes from now, and Fozzie Whitaker will join us from SEC Media Days coming up at the top of the 5 p.m. Eastern Time hour. You don't want to miss that. A whole lot more to do. It is the Zach Gelb Show, hour number 1 in the books, right here on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Yo, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Willie Colon going to stop by 20 minutes from now. We will continue our NFL preview. We previewed the Panthers earlier in the show. We will now preview the Jets, and that will come your way 20 minutes from now. Had a great weekend up in the Poconos, by the way, and I actually did a sports broadcasting clinic at my old sleepaway camp, Pine Forest Camp. So I did 4 sessions, so 4-hour sessions teaching sports broadcasting to some youngsters. One of the counselors at the camp actually came up to me, and she said, I've actually seen you because they played a video clip of you interviewing Manti Te'o in that Netflix documentary, and they showed that, And at first I'm like, oh, how are they like ripping my career? But then they were talking about covering difficult stories. So that was neat. And it was good to be up in the Poconos. Always enjoy my time up there. But there's a wing place that I always go to when I'm up there. It's called the Barryville Hotel, the BVH Sports Bar. And their wings are probably the best wings I've ever had. The only thing that comes close to those wings is Bar Bill near Buffalo. And there's like some, I forget what it's called there. It's like a hot honey, like Cajun wing up in Buffalo, which is just absolutely to die for. Hold on. If I do a quick Twitter search, because I tweet about these wings enough time, I'll get you the exact pronunciation of the wings. It's the Cajun honey butter BBQ wings from Bar Bill Tavern. But the wings that I get from my guy Johnny at BVH, they're called Johnny Hots. So they are named after him, and they are a sweet hot sauce, but they have a very good kick to them. And they were a little extra spicy this time. But he has probably like 25 wing flavors. There's some other camps in the area. Junior Seau, the late great Junior Seau, and Ricky Williams actually once went to this bar because the wings are that good, and they were doing like a local football camp at one of the nearby camps in that area. There's a bunch of sleepaway camps. But he told me, I have a new wing sauce. So I go, okay, I got to try it. He goes, a buddy of mine brought back a ton of Georgia peaches, and he made a screaming peaches sauce out of it. So it's, I don't know how he did it, but he used the Georgia peaches, and he somehow used that as the base with some hot sauce in it. And this was some of the best sauce I've ever had. Like usually, I don't know about you, Samter, when you get past your traditional wings, sometimes the other sauces are like so rich and they're so fancy where I could eat like one or two of those. But when you're ordering a full order of wings, what's like 10, 12 wings, whatever it is, I wouldn't want to eat 12 or 10 of those. Those wings, I could have ate 10 or 12 of those. They were that good. So Screaming Peaches is the new wing sauce right there at BVH, which I thought was phenomenal.
I'll have to try it out.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you're going up to the Poconos anytime soon, but.
I mean, if they're as good as you're saying, then maybe I'll have to make a trip up there just for that.
You know what I took actually there? We did a double dip.
Let me guess, a former producer of yours, not named me.
No, actually not a former producer, but not a former producer of mine. I actually went there with the great Sugar Ray Martell, who was a longtime producer here at the Infinity Sports Network and now produces Mets baseball on 880 WCBS. So we went up to a Buffalo Bills game, Buffalo Bills Patriot game. We saw Deion Dawkins and Tyler Medikevich. We went to Bar Bill. And then on the way back, the route takes you kind of close to where I go to in the Poconos or, in that area. And I said to Ray, if you want to have some really damn good wings, I'll take you to this spot. And Ray actually said, because I go, what do you think was better, Bar Bill or BVH? He goes, BVH hands down, which is a big claim. And I love BVH. And I do say it's my favorite wing spot, and it is. But the only other wings that I've had that have been close to them are Bar Bill. There's a good spot in the city. It used to be called Bar Coastal. And John Rothstein used to love these wings. And they're similar. They're not as good as the BVH wings, but they're similar with their sauce to Carrie's Way. And they shut down. And then Plug Uglies, which is in the city, opened back up in that location. Oh, you used to live around there, right, Samter? And Plug Uglies just basically reopened up. I don't know what happened behind the scenes there. But they basically reopened up and had the Bar Coastal menu, and there was the Carrie's wings on there, and it says, if you know, you know, on the menu. So there has to be something fugazi going on with the people that used to own Bar Coastal and whatever happened with Plug Uglies that opened it up because they mysteriously, very popular, mysteriously shut down. And then all of a sudden, Plug Uglies opens it back up, months and months later, and they have the same damn menu. So I don't know what's going on there in the wingverse. Anyway, we've been teasing this for a while. So I'll ask you this question, Samter. Brian Kelly so far at LSU. What would you think the perception is about Brian Kelly at LSU so far with this LSU family? What do you think about the job he's done in the first 2 years?
I mean, the first thing when you say Brian Kelly, LSU, the first thing you think of is just his weirdness, right? It's so weird. You don't think about Jaden Daniels and Heisman quarterback. Yeah. You think about how weird he was with the fake accent, with the weird videos and the recruiting trips and all these different things. But if you're talking about on the field as a coach, you would say decent job, good offense.
So, we talked about Ryan Day the other day?
Yeah.
And we said he only has 8 losses? And you look at Ryan Day, and I'm probably a part of this problem because I crush Ryan Day because he's lost to Michigan 3 times. He cries. He makes a bunch of excuses. And Ohio State has regressed under him, even though they have been to a national championship game, but they haven't won. The success is all judged based off the standard of the university that you're at. Like Ohio State, Ryan Day, I can't say he's been bad. I can't say he's been unsuccessful, but I can't call him great because the standard there is to beat Michigan and to go win a national championship. Now, he's lost to Michigan 3 straight times, and he hasn't won a national championship. For Brian Kelly, though, he left Notre Dame because he didn't think he could win a championship at Notre Dame. You look at LSU since 2000, they've had 3 coaches to win a national championship. Nick Saban, before we thought Nick Saban was the way that we view Nick Saban today, right? That was his first championship in the sport. You had Les Miles, and then Ed Orgeron, go Tigers. He won a national championship at LSU. And you're right. I think most people, when they think of Brian Kelly at LSU, they look at it and they go, oh, the fake accent at first, the cheesy recruiting videos. But it's kind of crazy. His first 2 seasons at LSU, back-to-back 10-win seasons. And he is 20-7 as a head coach at LSU. But the standard at LSU, when you've had 3 different coaches win a championship in the last 24, 25 years, is to win a national championship. So in year 1, he was in the SEC championship game. And in year 2, he didn't have a defense, but he had a quarterback that won the Heisman Trophy. And you had 2 wide receivers get drafted in the first round. So Brian Kelly at LSU, I'm going to defend him. He's been good. And I think a lot of people, and I do this sometimes, would mock him so far because that first impression is so big. And that's engraved in so many people's memories. But Samter brought this up to me yesterday. He said, look at historically year 3s for Brian Kelly. So Central Michigan, he was 4-7, 6-5, then 9-4 in year 3. At Cincinnati, he was 10-3, 11-3, and then he was 12-0. Think about that. Notre Dame, 8-5, 8-5, 12-1. So if this trend continues, LSU should be in the national championship contending conversation. Now, I don't think they'll be competing for a national championship. Like, they could have access to the playoff, but as we talked about yesterday, even though there's more access to the playoff, I still think there's only 4 teams that could win a national championship this year. And those 4 teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas. But if he follows that year 3 trend, Samter, 10-4, 10-3, 11, 12, if he goes, if he did what he did last year and be 10-3, LSU is in the college football. You get to 10 wins at LSU inside the SEC, you're a college football playoff team. Now, the quarterback, we saw a little bit above him in the bowl game. He's been there for a while. We've seen him before. That's a big question mark because it is going to be a drop-off from Jaden Daniels. But that offense will be good. It's the improvements on the defense. Can this defense just be average this year? And you got Perkins, who's supposed to be a stud, and, he's going to be an early pick in the draft. But the Brian Kelly year 3 trend is not something I was thinking about. But now I am thinking about it. And I'm fascinated to see this season from LSU football, what they end up doing.
If you think about it, last year they finished 12th in the rankings. They would have been a playoff team or right around that number in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, Brian Kelly, he gets so much flack for all this other stuff. He's a really good coach.
He's a good coach.
And he's a good coach in turning programs around and making them contenders. His issue is turning them from that contender into a title team, right? With Notre Dame, he got, Cincinnati 12-0, but obviously they couldn't contend. Notre Dame,
you saw him in the BCS championship game.
Correct, but
they got smothered by Alabama
and absolutely embarrassed, and hugging invisible girlfriend with Manti Te'o was.
Hey.
But at the end of the day, his issue has been getting over that hump and taking that next step from being contender to being like legitimate title hopeful. Like Notre Dame that year, yes, they were in the title game, but like it didn't feel like they really belonged there.
Mm-hmm. But
they
also,
didn't feel like the second best team in the country that year.
I don't think Notre Dame is a championship contending program anymore. You know, they're not a national championship contending program.
You don't believe in Riley Leonard?
No, like I think they could be really good, but when Notre Dame is really good, or when people say it's great, they have the record of that would suggest they're a great team, but when they get into the elite games, there's no reason to believe in them. So Kelly, who did a wonderful job at Notre Dame, wonderful, he realized that and went to LSU. And even though, like, you're even seeing it, 10-4, 10-3 at LSU, yeah, it's a good start. But when you've had Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron all win championships since 2000, you went there to win a championship. So you could go continue to post double-digit win seasons. If you don't win the championship, which now it's tougher to do because you have to win more with a 12-team playoff, then yes, Brian Kelly will not be viewed as successful at LSU. Like if he does the same thing he did at Notre Dame, where they're in the playoffs, double-digit wins, a bunch of years, that doesn't hold the same weight at LSU. You went to LSU to win a championship with your family. The only thing I'm just saying is I think the perception about Brian Kelly at LSU would be more negative than positive so far. But I think the coaching on the field has actually been more positive than what the conversation is in regards to Brian Kelly. But there's a few teams this year, like Ole Miss now, in a 12-team playoff, they better be in. LSU in a 12-team playoff, they better be in. Penn State, James Franklin. I'm as critical of James Franklin as anybody. You better be in the playoff this year. Kelly's old school, Notre Dame. 12-team, you better be in the playoff. Because if you miss the playoff with 4 teams, yes, some of those fan bases, the local fan bases, will crush you. But when you expand this to 12, and, you know, some of those schools, I know Penn State's in the Big Ten, Notre Dame isn't a full-time conference member. But in the SEC, you're Ole Miss, you miss out on the college football playoff in a 4-team format, no one's crushing you. You know, LSU, you didn't make a 14 college football playoff, even though the expectation eventually win a championship this year. I don't think anyone's crushing you. But when you augment it to 12, Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, James Franklin, Marcus Freeman, those 4 guys better be in the college football playoff this year. Because if they're not, you'll have people who have already questioned Marcus Freeman. Those questions will get louder. Obviously, James Franklin has been questioned. Those questions will get louder and louder in that concern. And I think right now, you know, Brian Kelly's a little polarizing. Where like 50% of the people be like, oh, Zach, actually, you're right on. He's been good at LSU. And other people be like, oh, I can't get the images erased when he first took over the job. You missed a 12-team format. There's no defending him. And Lane Kiffin, this is supposed to be a very good year for them. They could score a ton of points. We've seen that. You don't got to be great to make a 12-team format. I'm not saying Ole Miss needs to win a championship this year. I'm not saying Penn State needs to win the championship this year. Notre Dame needs to win a championship. I don't think those schools can. But to miss the playoff would be a failure of a season. And how that then determines how we view those coaches and how long those coaches then stay at their current institutions becomes a different conversation because now we're grading on a different scale. Where for a while it was, oh, you're just a good coach, not a great coach. You got a spot at a school for a decade plus. Now, you be 14 or 15 or 16, 13 and just miss out on the playoff. I think that's going to give a lot more people, deservedly so, ammunition to call for people to get fired. 12 teams changes the entire landscape of how we'll view coaches in college football. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll get to this top 10 list later on in the show. But next up, we got to preview the JETS Jets. We'll do so with the former Jets offensive lineman. Now does a great job analyzing the Jets and SNY, and is also a national pundit on the Cardin Show on FS1. Willie Colon will join us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the Hayes of the barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes. He runs and he throws, caught, touchdown! It's caught! Hardman caught the ball! The Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone! Their third Super Bowl in 5 years!
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The New York Jets.
Alrighty, time to preview the New York Jets. We'll do so with a former Jets offensive lineman. Does a great job now, pre and post on SNY, and you can catch him each and every day on FS1 on the Cardin Show. And that is Willie Colon, kind enough to preview Gang Green with us. Willie, how you been, big fella?
Babe.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Let me start you off with Davante Adams. There's been a lot of speculation about him this week, potentially getting traded to the Jets. I saw the agents of Davante Adams just sent a message to Adam Schefter that said this is baseless, unfounded speculation, and Davante is expected to be with the Raiders as there has been absolutely no trade talks, period. What do you make of this statement from Davante Adams' agents, and do you think this maybe puts a stop on all this speculation for now?
Well, listen, who knows what's ever going to happen, right? But I think at the end of the day, Davante Adams, he wants to win, and he hasn't been able to do that in Las Vegas with Aiden O'Connell. And moving forward, we know the best version of Davante Adams we've seen was when Aaron Rodgers was throwing him the football. So if you're the New York Jets and this year has to be all in, and that's been kind of the mantra thus far going into the start of the season, you have to imagine by maybe late August or sometime during this September, this may be a legit possibility that Davante Adams will be lining up and playing for the New York Jets. However, if you are Antonio Pierce, you hate it. You're right. You hate it because it's the distraction going into training camp. You don't need to hear this, and you especially don't want this type of headline circling around your star player, especially when you have a young nucleus in which they have in Las Vegas. So it's a situation where this is just going to have to play out. I think the temperament of Davante Adams means a lot. How he approaches the game, how he walks on the field, if he, how friendly and kind is he talks to the media. Everything's gonna be under one big microscope. So we'll see. But I think right now, if his agent saying there's nothing to be seen here, that it's all mush, then we just have to perceive it as that.
In terms of compensation for Davante Adams, would you give up the Jets a first-round pick in the 2025 draft if that seals the deal to get Davante Adams?
Well, listen, I think it goes back to what Aaron Rodgers said in the offseason. And he pretty much said, hey, if we don't win, this whole thing is over. And so if that's the case, then you may have to entertain that because Woody, from all reports, Woody was pissed off. Once Aaron Rodgers went down and Zach Wilson wasn't up to par or he wasn't competent enough to lead that offense, that thing fell apart, and there was a lot of weight put on that defense to at least stay afloat or win games for the New York Jets. They were 7-10 last year. You can't tell me with a healthy Aaron Rodgers that thing is flipped around. They may be looking at 10-7 or maybe more. So I think right now that organization, I think everybody's looking around themselves in that building like, man, it's either do or die. There is no more if. We either get it done or this thing is over.
I'll also be fascinated to see because not only is there the Davante Adams speculation, I think he'll be on the Raiders by week 1, but today Brandon Aiyuk demands a trade, and the Niners are like, oh, we don't have an intention to trade for him. I'll be fascinated to see if the Jets maybe give a call to the 49ers and see if they get a deal done there.
Yeah, that whole Brandon Aiyuk situation, they don't have to do anything. Right? That's what people have to understand. Yeah, he may want to go, and listen, I'm a big fan of Brandon Aiyuk. I love him. I love him in San Francisco. He hasn't gone anywhere. But from a business standpoint, the Niners just sit still. He can't do anything. So he can pound on the door all he wants and be as frustrated as he wants, and he can talk about Jaden Daniels and how much they had great times at Arizona State. The bottom line is Brandon Aiyuk will be playing for the San Francisco 49ers. Until they feel like they make a move that suits them best. But right now, it is what it is.
I think it's a great point that you bring up. And I think it's more powerful when a player says it compared to like what I say. Because I did say, hey, the Niners could get a little dirty here and play, put their hands in the mud with Brandon Aiyuk. It's almost now, because we're in this player empowerment era, Willie Colon. A player says he wants to get traded, and instantly everyone's like, oh, it's done. You got to trade him. The 49ers would be crazy, I think, to trade him right now.
Yeah, listen, you have Brock Purdy. They have a core with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and offensive line. They've been competing and fighting for Super Bowls for the last 4 or 5 years. They're not going to break that up because of one disgruntled receiver, right? Let's be honest with it. Brock Purdy is a damn good quarterback, and he's a damn good quarterback that proved last year that he can win games, uncanny or on time. No matter what you say about Brock Purdy, he can win games. But he won those games with Brandon Aiyuk, and I understand his numbers speak for themselves. And does he warrant the bag, and does he deserve the bag? 100%. I would never put my hands in another man's pocket. But the business is the business. He's tied. His hands are tied in this regard. And the Niners would be like, hey, man, it's about Niner football. And right now, we're the best operation in the NFL when you're on the field playing with us. And that's how they feel.
Willie Colon here with us. Obviously, getting back to the Jets, it's easier when you have the quarterback. But when you get to the head coach with Robert Saleh going into a massive year for him, with him clearly being on the hot seat, where's your confidence in the coaching abilities of Robert Saleh as a head coach?
I love Robert Saleh. I do. I'm a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of Joe Douglas. What happened last year was they got caught with the pants down. They didn't expect Aaron Rodgers to go down after 4 snaps. And it goes back to my earlier point. They also expected Zach Wilson to be a lot better. He didn't mask the deficiencies on offense. So with that said, you're looking at an offensive line that they did repair, but comes with an asterisk, right? You're talking about Tyron Smith. He's been in and out of the lineup.
Can they stay healthy? It's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's it. And right now, with everything that's it's all chips in the middle of the table, football's going to happen. Guys are going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. But when it's not about the ifs, but when it does happen, whatever happens can't derail the season. It's going to Robert Saleh and company are going to have to figure out whatever happens along the way, where there's guys in and out of lineup. The offense maybe not producing or firing out, they still have to win football games, and they have to do it at a high level because they have to get to the playoffs. There is no not making the playoffs for the New York Jets this year. They have to get to the playoffs. They have everything. They have the star power. They finally have their quarterback. Now it's time to go win and get it done. So for me, Robert Saleh, I'm not going to say he's on the hot seat, but it's steamy in there. It's mighty steamy. And so I think he knows it. And I think he understands that he's out of excuses. I think Jets fans are tired of hearing excuses. They're tired of everything that comes along with being a Jets fan. I think Jets fans are exhausted. They just want a winning outfit. They want to see winning football coming from New York, wearing the green and white. So with all that said, I have a lot of I think Robert Saleh, he was brought to New York to change the defense. He did that. You talk about the superstar power they have with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, CJ Mosley, Quentin Williams. Now they have Hassan Reddick. So they have guys that can go. Now it's about winning and getting it done and being where they need to be in the postseason.
I know it's not about individual awards, but I look at Rodgers. I expected to win Comeback Player of the Year this season. Coming off the Achilles, though, the age factor as well. I know you expect the Jets to win, but what do you think we'll see out of Rodgers this year? Because we all know how high of a standard we hold him to.
Listen, is Aaron Rodgers somewhat eccentric? Sure. But is he a damn good football player? Probably one of the best to ever do it at the quarterback position? 100%. So what I expect is to see Aaron Rodgers put on the cape in the Meadowlands and then playing high-octane football. And if he's able to do it with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and hopefully a healthy offensive line, I can see them being a top 10 offense in this league. That's just real. Now you're talking about Tyler Conklin at the tight end position. You're talking about legit weapons. You talk about what we were able to do in the draft. So, yeah, I expect them to be Aaron Rodgers as we've known and grown and seen from him every Sunday. Winning games, putting the team on his back and getting it done. That's what I expect.
When you look at the ceiling for this team, how far are you willing to go? Like AFC East champs, AFC championship game in the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, how far are you willing to go with your confidence with this squad?
For me, it goes back to what I said earlier. How do you manage the season? Things happen in the season that you just can't account for. But good coaches and good outfits know how to overcome them. Even with injuries or whatever, you know how to get through and win games. Can they stay on par with the elites of the league. You know, when you see what Kansas City wasn't great last year, but they figured it out and they got it done. There's certain outfits, man, and I mean outfits in regards to teams. They don't fall off the cliff. You know, they kind of hold on. They guys step up. They understand what they need to do on Sunday, and they win football games. I expect the Jets to win a lot of football games this season with Aaron Rodgers at the helm and just be consistent. So for me, it's just a matter of them getting to the AFC Championship. I can see them getting to the AFC Championship. After that, you know, we'll see what happens. But if as of right now, if I'm looking at them on paper, they look like a team that should be competing for AFC Championship.
You know, before we let you run, Willie Colon, inside the AFC East, how would you, because the Patriots right now at the floor, they're at the bottom, you know, being fourth. How would you rank 1, 2, and 3, Bills, Dolphins, and Jets?
As of right now, for me, it's Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Pats, right there.
Why do you put the Jets above the Bills just 1 through?
Because of Aaron Rodgers, our defense. I think this team right now understands there's a sense of heightened urgency. You know, this is a ball club that's been through it all and seen it all. And you know, one of the tough things about covering the Jets every Sunday is watching their star players especially in the post meetings interviews. You know, you can start to see the fire slip out of those guys' eyes. Right, they're fighting, they're crawling, they're starting to realize there are some things just bigger than what we could do on the field. It takes a team. Football is a team sport. Like it takes every guy in the helmet to put in and do their due diligence and give it all they got. And, you know, I was sitting there watching Garrett Wilson, sometimes speechless.
Yeah.
You know, I was sitting there watching sometimes Breece Hall frustrated. Why am I not getting the ball? I'm obviously that guy. Give me the ball. I was sitting there watching Quentin Williams being the ultimate businessman, really trying to rally his guys and say the right things after tough losses, knowing damn well they should have won that game. I remember seeing Sauce Gardner, you know, kind of looking like a deer in headlights, like not knowing what to say. And I've been a part of that, Zach. You know, I was on a 4-12 Jets team. In Valley, we didn't have nearly as great a talent that this team has, but we were all veteran, battle-hungry guys, really scrapping and crawling, trying to figure out why we can't get one win on Sunday. And that when that fire starts to dampen, and you're in the car with your family, man, and everybody's quiet, and everybody's like, well, baby, you did your job. Well, I get paid to do my job, but I also get paid to win, you know? And so those guys, you can start to see that's when it's like, man, is it ever going to happen? Because those guys come from winning institutions, right? They brought into New York to be the difference, and they are the difference, and they're still not winning, so it doesn't add up for them.
Last thing yeah, go ahead.
So with all that said, man, I really want those guys to win because football is a lot better, a lot funner. I don't know if fun is a word, but I'm just saying
today it is.
It's a damn good time to be alive when you win in football on Sunday.
Last thing I'll ask you, Willie Colon. We know if they don't make the playoffs, the coach is gone. If they go 8-9 or even 9-8 and miss the postseason, do you think that's it for Rodgers? You think he walks away?
Can't say that. I honestly don't know. But you're talking about a 41-year-old man, because I think he turns 41 in December, and he'll be coming off an Achilles. At that point, you would have to think from a business mind, you know, just me just talking, you may have to reset the whole situation.
He is Willie Colon. Willie, appreciate it. Keep on crushing it at SNY and also the Cardin Show. We appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate you, Zach. Thanks, baby.
Thanks so much. There he is, Willie Colon, previewing the Jets. High expectations for the Jets this year. I don't think anyone has higher expectations, though, for Gang Green than Marco Belletti. You're really optimistic on this Jets team.
I am. I really other than it's the Jets, give me a reason on paper that this team is not good.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of hearing, well, it's the Jets. Something will go. That's nonsense. I can't put stock into that.
The only concern I have for the Jets, and Willie touched on it, they improved the offensive line, but the health of that offensive line. Now, they did get some insurance with the offensive tackle out of Penn State, and you know, I know some Jet fans will say, oh, it's great they drafted someone, but they were also optimistic when they drafted Mekhi Becton. So that's the only concern I have is the offensive line's ability to just be average. All they got to be is average because even though Rodgers coming off the Achilles, he's got some mobility and a really good quarterback could help out an offensive line that's not great.
That's it. There's the two things. There's Aaron Rodgers, who's smart enough to not only be able to slide the line, but also know when to get rid of it and know when to protect his guys. So that part of it you have. Then you add in a guy who's just a difference maker in Breece Hall. We forget how good Breece Hall is. Look how good he looked last year, and the guy was coming off a torn knee. We expected last year that was the Jets taking Dalvin Cook. Use that to be able to use him early in the year because Breece Hall's not going to be the real Breece Hall. You're going to need at least a year to see it. And he was wiped away instantly. He was already Breece Hall from his first carry. So you're telling me he's getting stronger and smarter, and he's a full year off of that knee. Plus you get Rodgers back. The offensive line is improved. I understand there may still be some question marks. Can Smith stay healthy? We don't know. We'll find that out. But I think Aaron Rodgers is smart enough to be able to make up for some of those deficiencies.
And I'll give you two more concerns. The coach is a concern, but also coach looks a lot different when you get the star quarterback back. And then the other thing is, I have a little concern about Rodgers. Not him individually, but you saw Rodgers in Green Bay at the end be in those playoff games. And early on, right, a lot of times the defense was blamed. But the playoff game against San Francisco, where they lost the divisional round, you tried to force the ball to Devontae Adams, had Allen Lazard wide open. The game against the Buccaneers, how many times Brady turned over the football? They went 3 and out, like negative yards. So in the NFC, it was easier at that time to win. And now you go into a tougher conference. And that is something to me in terms of getting to a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl. Can they get through? Those would be my only three concerns with those teams, but I think they're all manageable.
So we're now into the idea of what Rodgers is going to be in the AFC title game, and can he step up at that point for the Jets? I think they sign up for that.
Of course they would.
And I think that's where, again, Rodgers, I know he's had some deficiencies. I was the first one to tell you years back with the playoffs. We've talked about this, but it feels like for almost 10 years. There's a ton of times where you looked at Aaron Rodgers and I'm like, hey, you know what? You're supposed to be the guy. Step up. You're in a playoff game. I don't want to hear about your defense. I don't want to hear about your running game. I don't want to hear about any of it. I don't want to hear any of it. I don't want to hear about your coach. I want to hear about you. You were the guy that put him in this position. You got to get him over the top. So I would rightfully so crush him if he's unable to do that when everything's in his lap and he's not able to perform. But again, we're going into a season. What's to tell me that Aaron Rodgers won't have a similar type season? I expect early on he's going to be slow. The Achilles, it's going to be more on Breece Hall. It's going to be more of make the smart play, not a million plays.
But you just got to get that body turned up and cooking in November.
He'll get himself back into not just playing shape, but also back into football. I understand his age, but I also think he knows his age. So he knows the limitations that he has. He's going to play well.
Just real quickly, the Jets or this team going into this year? Chiefs or the Jets?
It's still the Chiefs. You got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Bengals or the Jets?
I would probably take the Bengals.
Bills or the Jets?
The Jets.
Dolphins or the Jets?
Jets.
Ravens or the Jets?
The Jets.
Texans or the Jets?
The Jets.
Let's go. That's probably it, if you think about it. Browns or the Jets?
Jets.
Yeah.
Because there's two teams
AFC
that are above
West,
them.
no. Jaguars, I'm not going to say are better than the Jets.
There's two teams above them. It's the Chiefs because they're the Chiefs. On paper, the Jets might be better, but I don't care. You're a two-time defending Super Bowl champ.
It's the Brady factor. Even if you don't have the elite talent around the quarterback, doesn't matter. They win.
You're the Chiefs. The Bengals with Burrow coming back and with T. Higgins on the last year, I feel like this is their last hurrah to get them over the top with this current group.
Before you got to reset a little bit.
Yes. And I think that keeps them a little bit above the Jets. Plus, they've also done it. They've performed. When Joe Burrow's there, Super Bowl and an AFC title game, they've performed in the playoffs. They're a little bit above. I do think the Jets on paper or even with any team that you put out there. There is no team in the NFL that when you on paper say they're all head and shoulders above the Jets. I don't see how. I really don't. The Jets are that talented. They're that loaded.
And just to be clear, Marco Belletti is not a Jets fan.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, you despise the Jets.
Well, but despise is strong. I have no interest one way or the other. I don't care. Yeah. No, I don't care. I when they play, I'm not rooting against them. I'm not rooting for them. I don't care. But this team on paper is damn good. And the only reason everybody keeps downplaying it is because it says Jets. That's it. There's no other reason.
Take a time out on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we do return, we'll update some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call it the News Brief. But first up, here is El Capitan Marco Belletti with the latest Infinity Sports Network update.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Now, Zach, writing on the wall for a while. According to reports, though, Brandon Aiyuk has formally requested a trade from the 49ers. Aiyuk hasn't been shy about wanting a big payday, even flirting with the idea of joining his friend and former teammate Jania Daniels with Washington. Talks with the 49ers have seemingly stalled, leading to Aiyuk asking for out. Bears have reportedly signed their 2 first-round picks, come to terms with top overall man Caleb Williams on a 4-year deal, along with a 5th-year option, along with 9th overall pick wide receiver Rome Odunze. Rory McIlroy still trying to turn the page from his brutal end of the U.S. Open. He's getting ready for the Open on Thursday. He's got some great words of encouragement from Tiger Woods, but unfortunately, McIlroy didn't get them in a timely manner.
Full disclosure, I changed my number 2 days after the U.S. Open, so I didn't get it until he told me about it today. So I was like, oh, thanks very much. So I blanked Tiger Woods, which was probably not a great thing.
Check that. McIlroy will try to snap a 10-year drought of the majors, getting set for the Open beginning on Thursday. All-Star game tonight in Texans. Corbin Burns, Paul Skeens, your starters. First pitch, 8 p.m. Eastern. And Joe Jellybean Bryant, the father of Kobe Bryant, has died. First-round pick for the Warriors in '75. Traded to the Sixers, played 8 seasons in the NBA. Bryant was 69. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, we are sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families and members on the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week, it's Pirates rookie phenom Paul Skeens, who had a no-hitter through 7 innings before getting pulled last week. But Skeens will get redemption starting tonight's All-Star game for the NL after beginning his career with a 6-0 record and a 1.90 ERA in his first 11 starts. This is the defensive player of the week, right? This is the whole Reed Samter for Navy Federal. It's the defensive player of the week. Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Should probably just give it to the Pirates organization for the defense that they put on Paul Skeens and pulling him from that no-hitter, which I was irate and still incensed about. So I don't even like I have to read there. Oh, getting redemption for the All-Star game. Like at least you get to start that. There's no redemption. Well, they screwed him over. 99 pitches. He had 6 pitches back in the 7th inning. Let him go out there for the 8th. Still annoys me.
A week later, you're still all fired
up. I'm
up.
hot about that.
Oh, you're hot.
Oh, yeah.
You're like Carlos Alcaraz. We'll get to that.
We have that audio, right?
We sure do.
So this is Annabelle Croft, who's doing the interview at Wimbledon after Carlos Alcaraz defeated Novak Djokovic, and this is what she had to say when interviewing Novak.
Novak, I know this is not the result you wanted, but you were up against such a hot, talented opponent today in Carlos Alcaraz. He was on fire. Can you just share with us your thoughts on the final?
That's what I was about to say. He was definitely very hot today in the court.
I was locked into the championship, and I was watching that live, and I'm like, what did she just say? And then I go, is no one picking up on this, what she just said? And then Novak goes, he definitely was hot today. It definitely was hot out there. So how about that from Annabelle Croft? Let's go to Ross Bjork, the former AD at A&M, now the AD at The Ohio State. He was on with our buddy Ken Carman and Anthony Lima on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. And this is Ross Bjork talking about the future of the Big Ten.
For now, and I say for now, I'm talking the next 3 to 5 years. After that, there's going to be more movement, and you're going to have, I think there's going to be an economic, consolidation around the whole ecosystem.
Does economic consolidation mean like maybe some of the ones that the Big Ten might feel or the SEC, the two major ones might feel that aren't in making the investments in their programs, maybe they might get cut out from this and not be able to share the pie in the future?
Yeah. We don't know yet. Look, the economics of our two conferences, we're not the same as the other conferences. We're not the same as the lowest level of Division I. And so is there more stratification that has to take place? What that means, how it all works out, look, I don't have that crystal ball, but I just think where we're headed and the conversations and the economics, they're just different.
I've had this conversation for 2 years. I think a great misnomer out there is because it's the haves and the have-nots that the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to be like, open up the door, we'll take everyone. They've made strategic moves. Oregon, and even that took some time. USC, obviously Texas and Oklahoma started all that. But like outside of Notre Dame, Florida State, I guess I'll throw Clemson and Miami in there. Outside of those 4 teams, I don't think you should be waiting by your phone and thinking if you're another school that the Big Ten and the SEC is going to come begging for you to join the conference. Now, does it eventually just shift into one big, mega, super conference where it's like 65 teams and then everybody else is in the not category? Potentially. But if it stays true to the Big Ten and the SEC, I only think those 4 brands are really the ones that can be expected to go to either the Big Ten or the SEC. And I don't think Notre Dame, if they go somewhere to be the Big Ten, I don't think Notre Dame's going to the SEC, to be clear.
And forget about, to Ken Carmen's question there in the middle, forget about expansion. But does it mean like programs like Northwestern or Rutgers or Vanderbilt, do they get squeezed out?
Relegated?
Because they can't contend with those bigger. So maybe like
I think it also depends on TV market.
Yeah.
So
Rutgers is too big with New York. Yeah.
Rutgers gives you the tie into New York. Do I expect Rutgers to ever be a great team in the Big Ten? No. So it's what do they actually value, and that's the economic standpoint of this.
So Vanderbilt might be out of luck. They can't compete on the field, and they don't really seem to have the market size. They have a decent location, but it seems like maybe
pretty damn good
teams.
location.
Yeah.
So who knows?
That's part of it.
So Colin Montgomery, he basically said and suggested that Tiger Woods should retire. Tiger Woods shot back at this a little bit. Here is the whole exchange. It's cut 6.
Comments, last week from Colin Montgomery, who said, why is he here? He should retire. There's no point to this. Do you feel that's a bit hurtful and you've earned the right to you make the decision when you decide?
Well, as a past champion, I'm exempt till I'm 60. Colin's not. He's not a past champion, so he's not exempt. So he doesn't get the opportunity to make that decision. I do.
That's what I mean. You've earned that. You've deserved it.
So when I get to be at his age, I can still make that decision when he doesn't.
I love that from Tiger Woods. And here's why I love it. I'm a huge Tiger fan. I expect nothing out of him. But you're still the great Tiger Woods, even if you're not playing like it. And when Colin Montgomery saying what he said, even though he's probably not wrong, I love Tiger Woods giving a little dagger back and a little shot right back. I thought that was awesome. And we don't have time to play the Derby call, but I will say this. As Bobby Witt came just short to tying up the Derby, I made a last-second bet last night. At 7:56, I logged on to FanDuel. I didn't even see they were offering a 30% odds boost. And I said, I like Teoscar Hernandez. My friends and I in our fantasy baseball league, we've obsessed over Teoscar Hernandez the last few years. There've been a lot of trades where people have acquired him, teams that weren't that good, and they ended up getting him, Teoscar Hernandez. I said, I'm going to place a bet on him. I only threw $25, but I ended up winning $325 last night on the home run derby. And I tweeted this out, right at 7:58. I can't believe I just placed a bet on the home run derby, but this is what I'm going with. And it was 25 to win 325. So very happy on that one. And when that ball, I thought it was going out. He's down to 1 out left. I thought, you needed 3 home runs, and he got 2. When that ball was about to go out, I'm like, there you go. It's going to get tied. And then when it hit the wall, I was like, yeah, bleep, yeah. Fozzie Whitaker will join us next from SEC Media Days. We'll talk a little Longhorns.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Coming up momentarily, we will connect with Fozzie Whitaker, the former Longhorn, as he's going to stop by from SEC Media Days with Texas and Oklahoma now in the SEC. That will clearly be an adjustment, but Texas is right in the thick of the college football playoff national championship race. And I said this yesterday, I think they are a top 4 team in the country. Last year, I thought they were going to win the Big 12. I like what Sark is doing there. And even with the conference change, there's a big question. How is that going to impact Texas? Obviously, it's tougher to play in the SEC than it is the Big 12. But if you look at their current roster, going into this season. Georgia and Ohio State, for me, are the two best teams. But right after that, you got Oregon and you got Texas that I think are right there where I know you can't always do it this way because, in a 14 format, it's different than looking at it from a 12-team format. But if you just ask me right now, who are the four best teams in the country, I do believe that the four best teams in the country as we enter this season, in this order, would be Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, then I put Oregon 3, and Texas in at 4. So I think those are the four best teams as we get set for the college football season. But the SEC, it's going to be fascinating to see how this does play on out because you have a new head football coach at Alabama and no more Nick Saban, even though Nick Saban is now in the media world. But Nick Saban gets replaced by Kalen DeBoer, and we know what Kalen DeBoer just did at Washington. So you look at it, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Florida State. Those are the 10 schools with the highest odds to win the national championship. And Texas has a legitimate chance to go win a national championship this year with Sark and Quinn Ewers. But without further ado, we'll get to Fozzie Whitaker in just a second. But let's get to a college football fix.
We miss college football.
Milrose stands in. He throws into the end zone. He caught it. It's caught by Isaiah Bond in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama.
We can't wait for the 2024 season.
Hands it off to Edwards, who will bounce it outside. Got him at 40. Got him at 30. Donovan Edwards is in the clear. His second touchdown run of the ball game. This time from 46 yards. And Michigan has taken a 13-3 lead on the second touchdown of the night from the man who was not tripping.
And we're counting down the days to kick off.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
I said no.
Are we there yet?
What's wrong with your ears? Here is your college football fix, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, let's welcome in a Longhorn. He's been at SEC Media Days, which are underway, and doing a great job for Sirius XM. And he is Fozzie Whitaker, kind enough to join us as Texas is now in the SEC. Fozzie, we knew that was coming, but it's still a little bit bizarre when I have to say that into a microphone that Texas and Oklahoma are now in the SEC. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't know if it's as bizarre as the way I've been feeling considering my senior year, 2011. The Big 12 Media Days was here at the same Omni Hotel, and it was Big 12 branding everywhere. Now I'm seeing SEC branding everywhere, and it's still taking a little bit of adjustment for me to get there, but the hype and the excitement around this upcoming season, man, that hasn't waned or gone away at all. And I'm truly excited to see what this season holds for not just Texas, but the entire conference in general.
Well, there's huge expectations for the Longhorns this year. We'll get to them in just a second. But outside of Nick Saban getting denied entry to SEC Media Days because he didn't have his credential, welcome to the media world, rookie, right, Coach? I think the biggest story today has been that the SEC is not going to penalize teams if the opponents do the horns down to Texas. What did you make of that when you saw that?
That's actually very interesting. I work Sirius XM, and we had a chance to speak with John McKay, who came on. He's the senior official over officiating for the SEC conference. And he mentioned that if it wasn't taunting necessarily in front of the person and it didn't necessarily cause a travesty to the game, then it would not be penalized. And I think that's pretty much the accurate way of how that should be policed or controlled or adjudicated, considering other hand signs have been prevalent within the SEC conference. Typically, we don't have this conversation come up, and it's one of the things that whenever Texas comes in, it was a big discussion with the Big 12 and the penalties, and it's gotten blown out of proportion, if you ask me. A lot of Texas fans are actually not as pressed about the issue, right? If people want to put the horns down, then, hey, the solution is don't let them score. Don't let them get interceptions, right? And that's where a lot of Texas fans are actually fed up with it too. So I'm glad officiating has come down and said, hey, if it's not direct taunting to an opponent, then it should be okay, because that's what college football is about, right? Everybody has a little fun. Everybody wants to be able to enjoy their moment. You make a big play, you should be able to celebrate it properly. And I don't think horns down to your friends or to your teammates or to your fan is a penalty that is a 15-yard offensible offense. So I truly believe the SEC and the officiating have done the right thing by making sure they clarify the situation and understand that every situation that arises, considering the horns down or whether it be any other taunting, is particular to that incident. So I do like that is the story being talked about, but ultimately I don't think it'll be much of a non-story once the season kicks off.
Fozzie Whitaker here with us. And I don't know how many times opponents will be able to do horns down because Texas has big expectations this year. I think they're the fourth best team in college football entering the season with Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia right in front of them. It feels like this is championship or bust this year, even though they go into a new conference and there's, it's a tougher conference in the Big 12 going into the SEC. But this is, to me, championship or bust for Texas this season.
Yeah, I think those aspirations are very well within the reach and the grasp of what this Texas team can accomplish. You look at last year and you can build off of the foundational pieces that Steve Sarkisian was able to put in year number 3. Obviously, a 12-win season, college football playoff appearance, Sugar Bowl appearance, and Quinn Ewers is coming back, right? You got a dynamic quarterback, but you lose a lot of offensive weapons. Matter of fact, you lose all of your offensive weapons, including your running back, all 4 receivers, as well as your tight end. And so being able to replace the production that those guys were able to provide was a key emphasis this offseason for Sark. And I think that's where you look at how good of a recruiter Steve Sarkisian is. Not only at the high school level that he's able to provide those types of skills to be able to woo in his intentional targets, but you see it in the transfer portal as well. As you go get an Isaiah Bond, as you heard his name being called on your football fix, right? You got a 4th and 17. There's a guy in the back of the end zone that can make that play. And it's not too many times that play can be made. Number one, the throw was phenomenal. So shout out to Jalen Milroe. I still don't know how he was able to fit that into that window. But Isaiah Bond, everything that's on the line, the distractions that's happening, defender right in front of him, he still comes down and manages to find a way to bring the ball in and become a legend in that game, in that moment. But you bring in that guy. By the way, I don't even think I could ever do that or recreate that situation and win in college football on the game, right? NCAA 25 just came out. If you pre-ordered it, I couldn't replicate that on the game. So to be able to actually do that in person, man, that's incredible feat in and of itself. But Steve Sarkisian goes out and get him. You got Matthew Golden, who's a premier returner and absolute beast in the slot receiver position. Actually scored a touchdown against Texas this past season whenever Texas traveled down to Houston and played against them. And then you bring in Silas Bowden, Oregon State cat, unbelievably quick, has the same type of game-breaking return ability, and then will be utilized for his speed as well. And then from the tight end position, Amari Nyblack being able to replace some of that production from Jatavian Sanders, what he lost going on to the NFL. And that just goes to show you, man, Steve Sarkisian gets it, right? You got guys that are in the fold, but if you need to supplement, hey, we're going to go get guys. Not to mention who he already has on the roster, Jonte Cook, who I think is going to be the nucleus of that receiving core. And then you got DJ Moore, who's going to play a bigger role this upcoming season, especially out of the slot position. And then Ryan Wingo, right, a 5-star recruit out of St. Louis, Missouri. He has the potential to really be a game-breaking receiver and contribute in year number 1 as a true freshman. And then C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue, the running backs, that 1-2 punch, that tandem, that duo that we saw have so much success in the Sugar Bowl against Washington, they're coming back. C.J. Baxter's going to be completely healthy. Jaden Blue is absolutely electric. And I think that sums up some of the reasons why Steve Sarkisian has this team competing at a championship level is because he's able to reload, develop, and then get his team to play on the same accord.
Talking to Fozzie Whitaker right now. I've also been really impressed. I always wondered how they were going to manage this quarterback situation. I didn't think Quinn Ewers would still be at Texas, but I think it's smart that he did come back. Now, Malik Murphy is no longer there with him joining Manny Diaz at Duke. So if Quinn gets hurt, which he's been, at times the last 2 years, then we'll see Arch Manning. But I thought the Arch Manning storyline was going to be a big distraction, and quite frankly, it hasn't been so far, which is a credit to Coach Sarkisian and also Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Sark has had obviously a ton of experience of bringing in high-profile talent whenever he already has high-profile talent at the quarterback position. There's nothing new to him, especially with his long lineage of successful quarterbacks at USC, at Washington, and then you look at it at Alabama, right? He's had success upon success upon success with the next guy up type of mentality. And I think this is no different, right? He's been able to stack up that room, and one of the best quarterback talented, rich rooms that I've been able to see Texas have in a long time. For a while there in the mid 2000s and or not the mid 2000s, the mid 2010s, in the late 2010s, Texas was searching for an answer at the quarterback position, right? They were rotating between players. They were trying to find that guy that could be the next Vince Young or the next Colt McCoy. And it wasn't until Sam Ehlinger came around that they were able to find some consistency in that realm. And then now you got Quinn Ewers coming back as a third-year starter underneath the same system with Steve Sarkisian. I think that makes for a dangerous quarterback room. Number one is because Quinn is the elder statesman. He's able to take Arch underneath his wings a little bit more, right? I know Arch was there last year, but now you get to see year number two. You step into it. Arch has a little bit more responsibility on his plate, being the true backup and then playing in the spring game as much as he did, understanding he got to take steps in order to progress as well, because he's one play away from being the starting quarterback for the University of Texas. And like you mentioned, Quinn hasn't stayed healthy the past two seasons, so the backup has played a pivotal part in the success that Texas has experienced. So I think for both of those guys, man, it's an iron sharpens iron type of mentality where they got to keep competing, right? Quinn is still the unsound number one leader for this team, and Sark has said that, but that doesn't mean Arch Manning doesn't just sit back and relax. No, Arch is still chomping at the bit, making sure he's getting better, and not to mention true freshman Trey Owens coming in and showing what he can do in the spring game back in April. And I think all three of those guys are pushing each other to make themselves better players, but also better teammates for their team success in general.
Wrapping up with Fozzie Whitaker, let me get to Alabama. What are the year one expectations for you with Kalen DeBoer now taking over for Nick Saban?
Win. Literally just keep winning. I understand it will not look the same as Nick Saban-led team, but all Kalen DeBoer knows is to win, right? Anything that he has touched, whether it was at the lower level, whether it was at Fresno State, whether it was at Washington, he's found success. And I think that's something that is critical in his transition into this new role. He's never been at a place like Alabama, I understand that, but he's also never had the talent that he's ever had at Alabama. If you look back at the blue chip ratio, it's something that a lot of people live by, the number of 5 stars and 4 stars that comprise this Alabama team. Man, they lead the list, and they've led the list literally almost the past 4 years straight. And that goes to show you what it means and what it takes to be successful at Alabama. And the process that he's been able to retain some of the retention and talent level that he did. Now, there was some attrition. Don't get me wrong. They did lose some good players, but they were able to retain some really good players and bring in some good players as well. Not to mention Kalen DeBoer. We talk about Steve Sarkisian being a quarterback whisperer. Well, Kalen DeBoer has shown he can have some really good success whenever he has a talented quarterback as well. And I can only see that benefit in Jalen Milroe in such a way that Jalen Milroe is going to be a breakout candidate, which the breakout is relative, right? He was pushing for a Heisman candidate spot at the end of last season. But if you look at the beginning of the year for Jalen Milroe, and then you look at the end of the year, that development process was in and of itself transformational. And then you take the end product of Jalen Milroe, of what we saw last year, and introduce that to Kalen DeBoer, who we saw what he's been able to do with Michael Penix Jr. The past couple of seasons, and you're going to see a transformed new offense and a new guy in Jalen Milroe, and I think that's going to keep Alabama right where they need to be, and that's winning and having a spot right at the conversation for who's going to show up in Atlanta for that SEC championship game.
Wrapping up with Fozzie Whitaker. So we know that there's 12 spots for the college football playoff, 5 are reserved for the highest-ranked conference champions. How many SEC schools this year do you think get in? Like, I think Georgia's going to get in. I think Texas will get in. Alabama. And then all eyes are what? LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and I don't know who else you have in there, but how many SEC schools, when it's all said and done, do you think gets in the playoff?
Ooh, that's tricky. I do have 3 for sure. I think 4 is very lofty. You look at the SEC and the slate and the schedules, and you talk about it, right? There's Georgia at the top. I think there's a small gap from Georgia and everybody else, but then you got Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Missouri. I mean, not Georgia, Alabama. I'm sorry. Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Like that group of 6 teams all vying for that next spot. I think 2 of those spots are taken by 2 of those teams, but I don't believe the SEC gets a 4th one in. Not this year. I think there's still enough room for other conferences to be able to slide in there, right? I think 2 are going to come from the ACC. I think 2 will come for sure from the Big 12, and I think you got to give. Obviously, your group of 5 has one. The Big 10 is going to have their say so as well. Ohio State is probably already locked in right now as we speak. But I don't know if SEC is going to be able to have enough opportunities to put 4 in there after they kind of cannibalize each other, because all of these teams are going to play against each other.
Last thing I'll ask you, I'm curious on your thoughts of LSU, because I don't think Brian Kelly had a great first impression with the accent and then the recruiting videos, but he's had back-to-back 10-win seasons. I know the standard there is championship, because you've had 3 coaches win a championship since 2000 with Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. Go Tigers. But Fozzie Whitaker, when you look at it, it's like, how do you evaluate what Brian Kelly has done so far, and how do you think he'll continue to do at LSU?
Well, ultimately, I think if you look at the production of this year, right? Now, we got to see unbelievable talent, right? Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Those 3 individuals were absolutely on fire for this LSU offense.
They just couldn't stop anyone defensively. Their defense
They
was
just could not hold up on the opposite end of the spectrum. Now, they got one of the best players in the country who will be a top 20 NFL draft pick, Harold Perkins Jr. He's going to play in the box. He's going to play and rush off of the edge as well. They have to find ways to put more pieces around him to be successful, as well as the entire defense proving this is not just a one-sided, one-trick pony on the offense being able to produce points, but that defense has to show up. And they've made those strides, right? Coaching changes across the board on the defensive side. You bring in Blake Baker from Missouri, who's had tremendous success and helped Missouri win an 11-win season a year ago. You bring in Bo Davis, who had success with Texas, producing a first and a second-round draft pick in Byron Murphy, as well as T'Vondre Sweat. And you bring in all the key pieces that will make a defense successful with this all-star coaching staff. And if you can pair that up with some of the success that the offense experienced last year, right? Not all of it. Everybody's not Jaden Daniels, but I do think Garrett Nussmeier is going to have an unbelievable season. Not everybody is going to be Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas, but I do think Kyron Lacey's poised to have a big year as well. You pair that up, and they can play more complementary football, which I think is ultimately what Brian Kelly is looking for. They don't have an easy schedule now. Don't get it twisted. They don't have an easy schedule, but if they have just a semblance of a better defense, then this is a team that'll be vying for one of those spots. And I didn't say their name in the 6 for it, but LSU is right there in the mix. It's just so many teams that are good. That's the thing about the gauntlet of the SEC and what Texas and Oklahoma have to get prepared for is, man, you're facing talent on talent on talent in the venues, the away game, and the atmosphere. Whenever you go to these places, they are all electric. And I think that's something that's going to take a little bit of a learning curve. But those 2 teams can be very successful still in this conference. But LSU is going to have a lot to say about who ends up in Atlanta, Georgia for that SEC championship game once they get that defense fixed.
He is Fozzie Whitaker covering the Longhorns, obviously the former Longhorn player, kind enough to join us for 20 minutes right here on the Zach Gelb Show. Fozzie, enjoy the rest of the media days. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Fozzie Whitaker, kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show. A lot of good stuff from that conversation. I also loved, because, I love Brian Jones, but Brian Jones almost assaulted me at the Super Bowl when I was joking around with him doing the horns down, and Bijan Robinson was annoyed with the horns down. I'm not saying Fozzie wants to see horns down being done, but he thinks it's all in a good spirit for college football to allow it, and I love that the SEC is allowing that as well. It was really Rodney Terry, the basketball coach, who blew this whole thing out of proportion when he was freaking out in a loss. And, the other team, I forget who, I want to say it was like UCF or USF, I forget who it was. They were doing horns down to the basketball program, and that set him off. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. I got to give you this top 10 list from ESPN on the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. We'll give that to you when we come on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So ESPN has an article out. Executive coaches and scouts rank the NFL's top 10 QBs entering the 2024 season. I will give you this list from 10 to 1. In at number 10, the quarterback of the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, Dak Prescott. In at number 9, the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff. In at number 8, Ayahuasca Aaron, the quarterback of the Jets, Aaron Rodgers. At 7, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. In at number 6, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. In at number 5, Matthew Stafford of the L.A. Rams. In at number 4, Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. 3, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. 2, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. And number 1, any guesses? Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Imagine if it was like
It's
number 1. We're going to put Blake Bortles there.
Blake Bortles going
Yeah.
way back in the time machine.
I'll tell you, Blake Bortles haunts me. Has nothing to do with his NFL career. I was actually a stringer for CBS Sports Radio when I was in college. I was, whenever they had a big Temple game, and Temple had some big games, but they weren't particularly all that good this year, but they had some big opponents, and Blake Bortles was the quarterback at UCF. So whenever I would do the stringer work for CBS Sports Radio at the time, now the Infinity Sports Network, and I would do that Eye on College Football show with Ack, they would ask me to do it because they didn't really have a Temple representative. And I would have to then give up calling the games for the college radio station. But one was paid, one wasn't, so I thought that was pretty worth it. It got me some good beer money from the company, which I appreciate at the time, or a few cheesesteaks, if I may say so myself. And Blake Bortles was the quarterback at UCF, and I think it was Matt Rule's first year, so it was a 2-win season. And they played so many close games, but they just could not win. But they would show fight, and they'd be in these dogfights. And JJ, I think his name was Warden, I want to say, was the receiver. It was a incredible one-handed catch, and it was on SportsCenter for a few weeks. And that prevented Temple from winning the game when they thought they were going to upset UCF. So for some reason, Blake Bortles' name is always engraved in my mind just because of that moment. But anyway, I gave you the 10 quarterbacks on this ESPN list. Once again, I'll give them to you one more time. Dak, Jared Goff. Then you had Aaron Rodgers, C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. When I give you those top 10 quarterbacks, who's the one quarterback that you first say, surprised he's not on the list? I'll let you go first, Nico.
So I think that we've talked a lot about this quarterback over the last couple of months because he's in the conversation about getting an extension.
Mm-hmm.
But when you lead the league in passing yards, you have to be in the top 10 at the very least. So I'm going to say Tua Tagovailoa.
Are you a part of the Tuanon? Just wondering. Are you a crazy Tua Tagovailoa fan?
I wouldn't say crazy, but I do think that he gets very disrespected.
Okay.
I know he has Tyreek Hill, and I know he has Jalen Waddle, and those running backs do a lot for him. But he is still a top 5 pick in the NFL draft who has, in my opinion, when healthy, lived up to those expectations.
Yeah, I just think Tua hasn't done it enough, or has taken, for example, there's some quarterbacks that haven't done it long enough, but they've taken the team to these crazy heights. So Tua had top 5 stats last year, like you said, but I wouldn't consider him a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. I think there's 14 or 15 guys, and that could be considered for the top 10. And the guys that have to be in the top 10 are Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, and Matthew Stafford. Like, to me, those are the 7 quarterbacks that have to be in the top 10. And after that, there's a 7 other guys, and it's like you could only pick 3 from that group. So Tua's in that conversation of top 14, top 15, but he doesn't make my top 10. Samter, I think I know who your guy is that was left off this list, but let me hear it from you.
Well, there's a guy whose name I'm fine not being on the list, but after this year, he's going to be high on that list, and that's Jordan Love. I'm okay with him not being on the list yet. He's shown us 13 really amazing games in a playoff game. He was iffy to start the year. We don't know enough about Jordan Love, so I'm okay with him not being on the list yet. If I'm making a futures list, he's on it. If I'm making a list for right now, he's not quite there yet, so I'm okay with it. The guy who I think is really missing from this is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is 34-17. I know they struggled down the stretch last year, but he's been to a Super Bowl. He finished, but he's been to a Super Bowl. He finished second in MVP
Outplayed
voting.
Mahomes, and I know they lost the game, but he was the best player in the field in that Super Bowl.
I mean, the dude is, he absolutely, I like Dak. I like Goff. I think that Jalen Hurts is better than both of them. I think he should be on the list. I think he should be behind Rodgers at number 9.
All righty. I'm going to give you my 10. And I do think Hurts should be in there. And I think there's another guy that was left off that list.
Are you going in order?
Yes, I'm going in order.
Okay.
1 is Mahomes. 2 to me is Joe Burrow. 3 is Josh Allen. 4 is Lamar Jackson. 5 is C.J. Stroud. 6 is Aaron Rodgers. 7 is Matthew Stafford. Those are the 7 best quarterbacks, in my opinion, entering this season. I did put Jalen Hurts in at 8. 9, I did put Justin Herbert in there. I know that people want more out of Herbert. I think the last few years, while there's been some inconsistencies, though, is you had a guy that we all knew was coaching the team that shouldn't be coaching the team in Brandon Staley. And I was thinking for the 10th guy, who should I put in there? And I considered Goff, who I have a lot of respect for, Trevor Lawrence, who I think will enter back that conversation this season. I considered Tua. I considered Dak. I even considered Jordan Love after, the second half that he showed last season. But Brock Purdy has been to an NFC Championship game. I know he got knocked out of that game. And also, he's been to a Super Bowl. I know you could say system quarterback, and I've said before system quarterback. With what you've done the first 2 years, I got to put Brock there in that 10th spot. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on to it, but it's entering this season. Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, and Brock Purdy. But those first 7 names, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Stroud, Rodgers, and Stafford, I think they got to be in your top 10. And then after that, Hurts, Herbert, Purdy, Love, Dak, Tua, Goff, Lawrence. Wouldn't shock me after 1 year if we're saying Caleb Williams could be a top 10 quarterback in this league. But you have a wide range now. I don't know how many great quarterbacks there are in the NFL. But we got a lot of very good quarterbacks that make these top 10 lists tricky. Marco, I'll read you the list one more time from ESPN that they put out there. And I'm just curious if you think there's an omission that you think, okay, one guy should be on this list that isn't. It was Dak was 10, 9 was Jared Goff, 8 was Aaron Rodgers, 7 was Stroud, 6 was Herbert, 5 was Matthew Stafford, 4 was Lamar, 3 was Josh Allen, 2 was Joe Burrow, and 1 was Patrick Mahomes.
I'm a big Jordan Love guy.
Okay. Even after half a season.
Don't care.
Yeah, no.
You know what? One season out of C.J. Stroud. He's in the top 10.
Yeah,
Everybody's
you're
list.
right.
So to me, that I'm not going to. I've seen enough of Jordan Love watching him play, just like I've seen enough of C.J. Stroud to go, these two guys are going to be really good quarterbacks for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree with you on Jordan Love, and I'm actually okay because, right, he had an ill-advised throw at the end of that second round game where he threw across his body and it ended up getting intercepted. But though I think that's going to be a good learning moment for Jordan Love. And you see, he has that athleticism, and then he has a big arm too. I can't wait to see him for a full season now with a little confidence after who he was replacing.
He's got it all. And again, it didn't end in that game all that well. He also won a playoff game in his first year as a starter
and
took him to the playoffs.
Smoked the Cowboys.
I feel like Jordan Love is not getting quite the credit that C.J. Stroud is because he wasn't a full rookie.
Sure.
But in reality, he was a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
It's his first time under center. I know he watched Aaron Rodgers, and he watched and he learned well. And the Packer fans are going to go from Favre to Rodgers to Love, and it's going to take them 45 years before it's really it's ridiculous,
and it's kind of crazy. You look at someone like Dak, who's on this ESPN list, and I think Dak's a good quarterback. There's a lot of teams that would like to have Dak Prescott. But you look at C.J. Stroud. He got to the playoffs, his first year, won a playoff game, then lost in the second round. You look at a guy like Jordan Love, got to his playoffs in his true first year, won a game, beat Dak, and then lost in the second round. Like, there have already been guys, how young Purdy has been in his career. He's been NFC Championship game, a Super Bowl. How young Hurts has been to a Super Bowl. They've already either accomplished just as much as Dak in terms of team success, if not more, this quickly. That's why I don't put Dak in the top 10.
Even Trevor Lawrence, who everybody's down on, even getting a contract.
Round. Yeah.
And was right there, tooth and nail with the Chiefs, played great in that game. So there are problems with Dak Prescott. And the biggest problems is whenever the games are big, Dak has come up small. And it's not just in the playoffs, it's also games down the stretch to be able to get them either division title, home field, which they were able to do in this year, and then they wound up laying that egg against the Packers at home. So there's issues there. It's not just the Cowboys, it's also on Dak. He has played not well in big moments.
So I know that, I don't want to say you've been critical of the Bills, but you've been disappointed that they haven't been able to take care of this championship window.
Critical might be fair.
And knowing Marco's not an excuse guy. Like, if you're Marco's kid and you do something stupid in school and you're like, I was tired, Marco's going to be like, no, you're a dope. All right? That's probably the polite radio way.
You're right.
Yes.
I'm not good at excuses.
Marco is an accountability guy.
Yes.
That's why I call you El Capitan here. Because you are the real leader of the clubhouse. But I did read in this ESPN article, when talking about Josh Allen, an NFL veteran executive said, one of the most overrated players in the NFL. Immense talent, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He's underdeveloped. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line of scrimmage, tends to lock on to targets, more of a thrower than a precision passer, forces throws into traffic. Now, I know this is just one guy, and I don't know. I would love to know where this one guy ranked Josh Allen. The overall list put Josh Allen as the third best quarterback in the NFL. I don't get how any executive could say that Josh Allen is one of the more overrated players in the NFL.
You know where this comes from, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but Josh Allen, the way his career is going, minus one key aspect, is reminding me a lot of Brett Favre.
I was just going to say that.
Immensely talented.
And a lot of mistakes.
Oh, man, you can make some great plays, but there are so many boneheaded mistakes that you're like, you've been in this league way too damn long to make that throw, to make that decision. Now, Favre had the one title, so that is something that is eluding Josh Allen. He gets the one title, he's right on par with it.
Buffalo's first Super Bowl, too.
Without it, he's a guy that you look at and you go, yeah, look, great. We all see it, but you make too many damn mistakes. Now, I'm not an excuse guy. I'm not taking it off of him, but he has done enough to put the Bills in a lot of positions. 13 seconds left. Like, he's done this, and I can't put that game on him. Sure. I put it more on the entire organization and on McDermott that they haven't put the entire team in the right position. For Allen, he needs to do his part. And there were times last year he looked awful. There was time 2 years ago that he looked awful. But I do feel like he's a guy, when push comes to shove, will make the right plays if they put him in that spot every year.
And entering this season, I think you could agree, there's only two players you could really argue that you rather have for just this season in terms of the quarterbacks, and that's Mahomes and Burrow, right?
I can argue a few. There's only two that if you argue with me, I'm going to look at you like you're nuts. If you want Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes, you need your head examined. If you want Josh Allen over Joe Burrow, I got to question your football IQ. Because I'm sorry, there is no discussion there. After that, I'll listen if you want to put Lamar Jackson in front of Josh Allen. I personally wouldn't, but I'll listen.
Rodgers.
There's guys that I'll listen. I disagree, but I understand your thought process. And at some point, Allen's going to take a knock. You keep going through year after year after year. You keep taking that shot at everything. You get another crack at the apple, and you come up small, and it winds up being a game where you throw 3 picks in the playoffs. Yeah, at some point, I'm going to put it on you. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. We talked about this. Some of the playoff, issues that he's had. Everyone made excuses for a long time. At some point, it's got to be on you to be able to make that play. Allen hasn't done enough. He's been close. They need to do a better job, but eventually it becomes a trend and it becomes you.
And I know I got a break here, and I put him 7th on my list, but I've always been someone that thinks Matthew Stafford's been a little bit disrespected. I'm glad on this list he was 5 because it shows some national respect through executives.
Again, Stafford is a damn good quarterback. The fact that he won the title alleviates all of that because he was just a stat monger for a long
Exonerates him
time.
from some of the questions in Detroit.
He was Kirk Cousins until he brings home that title. Now you don't have to question it because you know what he's done in a big moment and you know what he did with a good team around him. Same thing for Kirk Cousins. He ever actually gets that ring, we're having a different conversation. He's in that 10 no matter what because the numbers are there, but we haven't seen him come up with it. Dak, Josh Allen. There's certain guys that you're like, yeah, you know what? Can you get to the ring? Can you get at least in a position to win a title? Matthew Stafford has done that, which is why he cemented his place.
He is El Capitan Marco Belletti, and here he is with the latest Infinity Sports Network update.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach seems the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk don't see eye to eye on contract negotiations. Aiyuk has reportedly requested a trade. Now, 26-year-old wideout looking to get his payday after back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. However, reports are the 49ers not interested in moving Aiyuk. Bears have come to terms with top overall pick Caleb Williams on a 4-year deal, just under $40 million, of course, with a 5th-year option. Also signed Rome Odunze to a 4-year deal, $22.7 million with a 5th-year option. So Chicago has both first-round picks in the fold. Tiger Woods has seen his share of ups and downs, so when he saw the struggles down the stretch by Rory McIlroy, made sure to reach out to give him some words of encouragement. Now, Rory didn't exactly get the message on time, saying he changed his number a couple of days after the U.S. Open. Did get a chance to hear it, though, directly from Tiger, and the moment was not lost on him.
It's always nice when, your hero and the guy that you had on your bedroom wall is reaching out and offering words of encouragement.
Now, the Open begins Thursday on Scotland's West Coast. MLB All-Star Game
I changed
tonight.
my number, by the way, Marco, so don't text me with the same thing if I have a bad show.
Well, I was going to text you anyway. All-Star Game comes up 10 tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm Marco Belletti.
You make the call. 855-212-4227. When you want to talk to us, call 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, wrapping up shop. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. With the All-Star game tonight, and in honor of Paul Skeens being the All-Star game starter for the NL, which, by the way, I thought Tarek Skubal got screwed in the AL not starting the All-Star game. And I thought that was a bad job. But I thought to myself, who are the 5 athletes that you would pay to watch right now? And you know what's crazy? Out of all the guys that I've considered, I have seen every athlete of the players I considered that like I would go pay to see that I've already seen besides 2. There's only 2 guys on the potential options. So the honorable mention, Steph Curry. Steph Curry is one of my favorite players just to watch. I've seen him play before. Shohei Ohtani, I've seen him play before live. If he was still pitching, I think he has to be on this list, and he's great at the dish without the pitching, but there's just a different kind of feeling when he's able to pitch and also just mash at the plate. LeBron, just from the historical significance, even though, did you see the Jaylen Brown comments? I loved him at first. So Jaylen Brown sitting courtside, and he said, I don't think Bronny is a pro. And it's so obvious that's what he said, even though everyone's analyzing his lips and lip reading and everything like that. But then to quote tweet it and say, it's a flex to have your son alongside you in the NBA. It reflects greatness and longevity. Bronny has all the tools around him to be successful. I look forward to watching his growth. Like, he did backpedal on it, but he didn't deny that that's not what he was saying in the video. I'm fine if there's a little animosity in the NBA. I'm fine if players have opinions. You don't all have to make it what LeBron has made it to be, you got to pat everyone on the ass and love everybody. It's just crazy. But yeah, my honorable mentions are Steph Curry, Shohei Ohtani, LeBron James, and actually in the UFC, I've seen him fight now twice in person, Alex Pereira. This dude is so entertaining. But my 5 athletes that I would pay right now to watch, and 2 of them that are in my top 5 I have not seen live in person. One's Nikola Jokic. So go 5-1. 5's Nikola Jokic. I was supposed to see him last year in the Western Conference Finals, but the damn Lakers couldn't win one game. I had tickets for Game 5 in Denver. But I'm enamored by Nikola Jokic. 4 is Patrick Mahomes. I've obviously seen him in person a lot, and in big games, 2 Super Bowls. 3 would be Paul Skeens. So I obviously have not seen. He's only pitched 11 times. I've seen him on TV, but I haven't seen him live. There's just a certain buzz that he's brought to the game, and he's been pulled now from 2 no-hitters, and they haven't let him finish either of those 2 no-hitters. But Paul Skeens, there's just a certain buzz and hype around him right now. I got a chance to see him actually at this game, this hockey puck with Perloff and Sully, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. 2 would be Connor McDavid. And number 1, I don't think people will expect this, but I saw this person participate in the U.S. Open a few years ago en route to winning the U.S. Open. I saw him in one of the earlier rounds. And I was blown away by this person. I've never seen a person move laterally the way that he does. And every time he moved across the tennis court, I thought like he was going to tear his ACL or rupture his Achilles. Like I was blown away how a person was able to move that way. And that's Carlos Alcaraz, which we don't talk a lot of tennis on this show. I'm not going to pretend to be a huge tennis fan, but I love whenever I get to see Carlos Alcaraz in person. I think he's so entertaining. So those are my 5, Santa. Any reactions?
No, it's a good list. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised you have McDavid number 2, but the fact you have tennis and then hockey as your 1-2, and that tennis is your number 1.
And then baseball 3. I didn't get to a football player until 4th, and I'm a huge football guy.
It's very interesting. Skeens is very... I probably would rather see Livy Dunn over Paul Skeens, so maybe I'll go see an LSU gymnastics match, but I do want to see Skeens. My 2 people...
Go Tigers!
My 2 are not on your list. Neither of mine are on your list. Wembanyama, I need to see.
It's a great one.
Can't wait to see Wembanyama.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark, too.
That's my number 2. Caitlin Clark and Wembanyama are the 2 I need to see now. Although LeBron maybe 2, because he's going to be gone before you know it, so maybe I want to see LeBron.
You know what? I would actually bump Nikola Jokic off the list. And out of those other 2 names, because Wembanyama, absolutely. I've been in the same room as Wembanyama at the draft, but not able to see him play. Caitlin Clark would be there probably in F5. But, man, there's so many there that you can get to. Anyway, great job out of Nico. Great job out of Samter. Big thanks to each and every one of you. Also, big thanks to Jake Delhomme, Willie Colon, and also Fozzie Whitaker for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Rich Gannon will join us and so much more. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.